any motion to accept or approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Second by John Pender. They're approved. Let's see, so should we do the public invited to be heard, or should we just want to observe what's going on? Okay. What?
I want to see what he's got to say.
What?
We're going to hear what's going to be said with Ride Longmont.
Oh, Phil's not here yet. But we will be here to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
A little louder.
They're asking about, talking about Ride Longmont. I said Phil Greenwald will be here shortly to do that. Okay,
You want to do suggestions?
sure.
All right. Like I said, my name is Ann Potter, and I've been coming here for a couple of years, and with the revamp of the front lobby, just was talking to some people to try to understand how to use that huge space better. And things that I had thought about was, is there a way to move like a couple of round tables up there with some chairs, have checkers or chess available for checkout for people, or they can use the space for that? I also thought that maybe if we put in a suggestion box, the old-fashioned suggestion box out front for people to be able to input, and possibly once a month come up with the best suggestion, have gift certificate to Starbucks or something to go with it, but some way to get more different attitudes and ideas out there. Wondered whether or not we couldn't put up a community table for puzzles, where you could have a bunch of people working on puzzles, so that it would just give you more interplay with different people that were there. Newspapers in the lobby, you know, other than it feels kind of sterile up there, kind of like a hospital waiting room, and just trying to make it more inclusive for people. The other thing is I suggest that we move the books back up front. Why can't we put in a like a little nook, a book nook, that, you know, put a couple of chairs in there, a lamp, something that invites people in to use that space, other than it being a huge open area. Other thing is, you have here groups that make quilts, do whittling, that sort of art. Can that be displayed in the front? You know, maybe for a week, that they get to show the work that they've done, and it might help include more people into those projects. In the cafeteria, if there could be a space made for people to walk through that are either have walkers or canes, have trouble walking. Right now, it's a real difficulty trying to get through that for people with walkers or any type of mobility issue. Trying to see what else I've got on here. I noticed that we are using styrofoam cups, and I am opposed to styrofoam. I think that we should be more environmentally friendly than that. Another thing is looking at, you used to have a candy machine and a pop machine here, and asking at the front desk what happened to them, they said, well, it was too expensive. I think that we're all adults here, we can make those decisions for ourselves, other than it being dictated as to whether or not it's too expensive. I would say in general, the other thing is perhaps a small committee that could visit other senior centers, see what things they're doing, or how they're, you know, new inventive things that they've come up with. And I think that that's what I've got.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive list.
Okay,
Thank you very much for the thoughtfulness.
you bet.
What I had down is want some things done in the lobby to make it just more welcoming, tables, puzzles, things like that.
Yeah.
Ronnie's here to have heard that manager, so
Okay.
let's see what we can do for you. And how do we get back to you and let you know?
You can let me know.
Through Eric.
Okay. Well,
I'll just give you this.
how we'll proceed with that. But thank you for the thoughtfulness. Yes.
I do want to say one quick thing. The agency, the AAC, is a committee from the Boulder County Agency on Aging that gets together once a month, and they travel from one senior center to another.
Okay,
And there's always a representative. In fact, Arlene is a co-chair of that committee.
okay.
And I was the rep, but I left. But we're going to be talking about another rep coming from Longmont at this meeting.
Okay.
But that's pretty much one of the things they do, is they check out each senior center. And then during the meeting, they talk about what's going on in the Boulder County Agency on Aging, but they have one person from that particular senior center discuss what's going on at their senior center.
Okay.
So then other people from other centers can hear what's going on, can hear the latest and greatest and things like that. So that is one way to get information about what's going on in other senior centers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
And I also want to add that you're bringing it up now is good timing. You've seen all the changes that have happened in the lobby with the new furniture. So I think it's a great time for us to review some other things we can do. So thank
Okay,
you.
great. All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ann. Good
Yeah.
suggestions.
You bet,
Thank you.
you bet.
We'll see if they,
That's it.
we'll see if they.
You bet.
Anything else? Moving on to new business. Yes.
John, how do we go about implementing some of those, or when does that come up in the meeting?
Well, you know, the list has gone to Ron, and Ronnie's got the list. We can talk about what he might be able to do in the future, I guess. to see-
Right, and I appreciate the recommendations, and I just want us to be mindful that's what they are, recommendations. We can't make guarantees on these requests that come about. We can do our best to accommodate. There's some information and misinformation in an understanding. I'd love to follow up with them too, to, explain we don't have vending machines in our lobby, not because it's expensive, it's because number one, they're not being used, and number two, how can we utilize that space and still offer that same service? And we partnered with Meals on Wheels, who have different options, healthier options, and they are seeing an increase in purchases as a result of, number one, what's being offered, and number two, it allows us to utilize that space instead of having two vending machines that aren't being used.
So you're working with them to bring it in?
That's already in place,
Oh, the machine is here?
not a machine, so
Meals on
they
Wheels.
offer.
Oh, the
food.
Meals on Wheels, yeah.
Yes,
the
so they have
food there, yeah.
drink options, they have snack options. When I say snack options, I'm talking granola bars, eggs, boiled eggs, cheese sticks, and some candy options at a reduced rate. So they're not making money, but they're offering the same service for a cheaper rate, and as a result, they're seeing better, I'd say greater we'll call them sales, even though we're not making anything, versus what we had in our vending machines here. And when they come and replace the food, it was expired, and so they are losing out on business because they're throwing away food, they're not selling food.
Yeah,
So,
I would think that wouldn't do
Yeah.
real well, yeah.
yeah, and so, and there's a rhyme and reason to what we've done with the lobby, so I'll definitely love to follow up and provide our thoughts on that.
So,
So could you let Eric know, he knows, and,
Absolutely.
that's great.
Can I say anything?
Yes.
Because I'm just an observer. That table that's put out in the welcoming room there in the atrium, should be utilized for welcoming and for having information, and that's what I think. I mean, that's, keeps instead of having all the attention on the front desk, but have this welcome table used more.
And that's what we've been, exactly, that's
That's
what
why
it's
it's
been
there,
shifted towards.
But it isn't used as much as it should be.
Oh, it is.
I'd say it
Depends on
was
the
what
time of
it's-
day.
what-
We have volunteers
Yeah,
scheduled. One of them. And serves as that resource location
Uh-huh.
for
Resource, yeah.
programs, new information coming about.
Maybe even have some sort of a letter regarding this, the advisory board with all the information on it that goes through the advisory board, so people can have more of an input.
Anybody else have anything? Nope. All right. Well, Bertha got here just in time.
I did.
You're
Yes.
next.
I'm next already? All right.
You can take a second if you wanna.
Well, I'm wondering, do you guys want the PowerPoint, or you rather not have it? I'm happy to do this however you would like.
Is it set up for PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
right
back
behind you.
Who's gonna cover it up?
Take a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Just wanted to make sure what you all preferred.
Needed entry.
While we're setting up, I'll give more information on the front desk.
Oh,
The table we have in our front lobby.
I can send it to.
What we're doing is we have set up volunteers to be that, we'll say, front line of defense for guests coming
It
in,
wasn't.
new guests or returning guests, to get information about our programs, our services, and so that way the front desk, it helps alleviate the line of front desk and the need to provide that customer service. So we have our volunteers providing information. Someone comes in, what is center offer? I was looking at these programs, what trips are out there. Our volunteers help answer those questions, and our front desk will focus on phone calls. Those who want to actually register for the programs, and it just helps alleviate the work and the lines at the front desk. And it's been fantastic. We've heard great reviews. Our volunteers, we have great volunteers that jump in and help provide that support. As much as I can, I go up there and hang out. And yesterday I was hanging out with. She's new to our community, but wanted to help support. So I blanking her name, and got a chance to really get to know her. But she said, she's retired flight attendant. That's our and was it Ken? Tinsy, yes. And so she was just saying that that support in her observation doing that work has been fantastic, because she's like, oh yeah, I see the impact by us taking these guests and answering these questions, that the freedom it allows our front desk to catch up on the day-to-day stuff versus answering phone calls and, oh yeah, you're interested in the program, let's talk about it. So our volunteers take care of that piece. So it's a new system, it's been effective, and that's what that table has been utilized for.
It's good. I like it. I enjoy talking to the people.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, Valerie mentioned that she's got a waiting list of volunteers to fill the table as she gets more clear on what the training people for.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Well,
That's good.
I think what Anne was saying was she wants it to be more social, like more tables out there, so people can gather there. Because sometimes when you walk in, it is a little sterile.
So it depends on the time of day.
Okay,
And
like
so,
this morning it was sterile.
Right. So it depends on the time of day, because if there are programs going on, then yes. There's times that, depending on the time of day, that whole lobby is jam packed.
Oh, that bridge group.
And with Bridge waiting for their
Especially when they're
program to
waiting
start.
for bridge, right?
Right. So there's Bridge.
They're around a lot.
And the feedback I've received since I've been here is we don't have enough conversational spaces. We
Yes.
had a couple couches at that point and 2 tables that weren't functional. And so that's why, we worked to, we got feedback. And so what did we do was we created 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 different conversational spaces versus just the one that was in the center of the lobby in the past. And we've received fantastic reviews from all of our guests. You know, as I think I shared with the board, as soon as we put that furniture down, piece by piece, the delivery drivers put the furniture down. We already had guests sitting in it and trying out all the different couches, right? And so we
Sure,
heard
it's
positive feedback because it allows various spaces for conversational spaces. And so again, I appreciate feedback. There's a lot that we can look at and look at different spaces. Our bookcases that used to be in the lobby, you know, we had it at each end of the lobby. So we have bookcases over here, and over here. And so what we did with that adjustment, removing the soda machines with Meals on Wheels support, providing you know, food options, we created that book nook over there in the corner, and the same thing. We heard fantastic reviews from those who frequent the bookshelves because it's a quiet space now versus in the lobby when, depending on the time of day, right, the traffic. It's in a quiet space now. We put lamps over there, and it's just it's a more, I'll say more intimate setting versus it being all over the lobby. You know, bookshops all over the lobby.
Right.
And so same thing. We took that feedback and moved it over there, and we've heard great things as a result.
Is there a way of utilizing the porch once the weather gets a little nicer?
It's open all the time.
Okay.
Anybody can go out there right now if you wanted to.
We
Yeah,
have
maybe
our,
that's a good place for puzzles or something like that, you know? Okay.
we have our yoga class and energy class out there sometimes, so we use it.
Great conversations.
Yeah.
Alberto, you ready?
I am.
All right, hit it.
All right, so let me introduce myself really quickly before we get started. My name is Heriberto Mendoza. I am the Human Services Program Manager. I work under Christina, just like Ronnie. My main role, I have two main roles that I do for the city. I do a lot of different things, but I have two main roles. One of them is I am our liaison to Homeless Solutions for Boulder County, which is a regional collaborative that is working together between the City of Longmont, City of Boulder, Boulder County, and our nonprofit partners on addressing the issue of homelessness. And so I spend a lot, in fact, after this, I'm going to a meeting in Lafayette about housing and homelessness, and I'm going to be having conversations there about this. So that takes part of my time. The other part of my time, I help Christina oversee and run our human services set aside funding. So just so you know, the backdrop is for many years now, I don't know exactly when it started, but it's been many years now, City Council gave a certain percentage or allocated a certain percentage of their general fund, so this is mainly sales tax, income use tax, for human services funding. Up until 2021, it was about 1.75%. With the work of our previous director and our Housing and Human Services Advisory staff, we have gotten that up to about 3%. So in real numbers, for 2025, for this year, we got about I think Christina, 2.2 or $2.3 million, something like that. 2.4. And then we since 2017, we started divvying up that money at council direction, half of it going to homelessness and homelessness prevention, which I'm going to talk to you about right now, and then the other half goes to human services application. There we hold an open application round for local nonprofits to apply for the other half of the human services fund, which this year was 1.495 million that we put into human services funding. And I can talk about that another time as well if this board wants to know more about the human services funding. But what I'm going to focus on right now is what we use our homelessness side of the funding for and the services that we help fund. Now, what I'm not going to talk about, because I don't, this is where Ronnie, the Senior Services Director, or Hilda can talk about the work that they do on homelessness and homeless prevention, because Senior Services does a lot on those issues. I'm going to talk about what we fund and with our external partners primarily, and also our lead and core through public safety does a lot of work on homelessness as well. But I'm not gonna address that. I'm gonna address what we fund and who we partner with and give you some data that we get from our external partners, okay? If you have any questions, stop me. But I think I got, 15, 20 minutes? What's my?
15, that's fine.
Okay, I'll try. It's not a lot of slides. And so I'll try and be as in-depth but as brief as possible. So please stop me if you have any questions. All right, so let's start with homeless prevention. In 2017, when we divvied up that money that way, about half going to homelessness and homeless prevention, we put out an RFP for a homeless prevention program that we call Homesteading. And we had several applicants, but the R Center went out, and since then we've been contracting with the R Center to do it. We provide them around $226,000 in 2025 to help pay for the staff person and then the direct financial assistance. So this is to help pay people to cover their rent for families that are needing. So I want to be very specific about this program. It's not just emergency rental assistance. There are some qualifications for the program because there are other funds in the county and elsewhere for emergency rental assistance. This is really for families who are experiencing a temporary setback, whether it be medical, whether it be a transition in employment, to help them make that transition and then continue successfully to live where they are living. Like I said, we don't do emergency rental assistance with this money. There's other sources of funding for that, but we do help people who are experiencing financial challenges due to a medical condition or employment transition. And that is typically who we serve, is people who are, someone got sick and couldn't go to work for a few weeks, or someone lost a position and are seeking another position. So I have some data for you, and I know the font's a little small. Every year is different. We try and serve 45 families a year. In 2022, we served a total of 59. We have a goal for people to reach 1 month's goal of rent in savings. That's a hard goal to reach. We feel pretty good about 2022. We had 17, and we also asked that they try and get financial skills support classes. And we had 53 of them. So most of the families took the courses that we wanted them to take. We're still working on 2024 numbers, by the way. We don't have those completely done yet. In 2023, we had 45 families that we helped, 45 households. Only 3 were able to save 1 month goal, so you can see that the economic challenges is tough. And then most of them, again, did take the the support classes, the financial skills support classes. And we used around $120,000, primarily in rent, but a little bit in utilities, whatever they needed to keep them in their home. And we have some, just so you know who our family structures were. The vast majorities are people with children. So you can see that between either single parents or 2 adults with children in the home, they're the vast majority of folks that we're helping, and about 34% were single individuals. So what is provided with the support is intensive case management, up to 3 months of rental assistance, and we connect them with a mediation. If there's a tenant-landlord issue, we connect them with our mediation folks at the city. But it's really that intensive case management support to help folks find their next step. And again, it's for those folks. It's for families and individuals that are not in such trouble that we can actually help them. If you already have a eviction notice, this program probably isn't going to be able to help you in time to get you what you need. It's really trying to prevent from you getting to that situation. There are other programs that can help with that. So that is our homeless prevention program, and it's around, this year was $226,000. That covers the cost of the staff and the direct financials. We have some funding in there for landlord support as well if needed, but that's primarily the program. Any questions on that?
Roberto,
Yes.
is 3 months the max that you'll support?
That's what it has been. This year we're going to change it because we're learning. I mean, the other thing I want to say about any program that we do, that we either partner with or we fund, we believe ourselves to be a learning program. There is no perfect program out there, and so we understand that as we work with families and individuals, we will learn things, and we try then to, from what we learn, implement them into the program. So to your question, that's what it was. This year, we may serve less, but what we're seeing is folks coming with higher burden of rent. So we're probably gonna either increase the amount of time they can work with them or increase the amount of funding that because typically it was about $3,000 a family. That we're gonna increase that to $5,000 and extend hopefully the case management between 3 to 6 months. That's kind of what we're gonna try and implement this year. And again, that all happens in partnership. This is not me saying this is what we're gonna do. This is a collaborative effort with the Art Center, conversations with their the staff that are working with the families, and us learning from those interactions.
And the increase in cost burden is just rents are higher.
Rents are higher, yeah. So we'll probably serve less, but we'll serve them deeper.
Thank you.
Oh, questions, Petal? Go ahead.
How do you find the homes for these people if they're renting?
So most of them already have homes. They're in their home, and we're trying to keep them in their home.
Keep them there, okay.
Yeah, it's called home steady. We want to keep them steady in their homes.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
What are the qualifications?
So there's not a lot of qualifications. Like I said, the main qualification, and we're even looking at that, is we don't want you to be with a notice or an eviction notice in hand. And this funding, the other qualification is that this funding, we do not want to fund someone and be just a Band-Aid. If there is deeper need, then there's other programs that happen. So for example, the county has the Housing Stabilization Program, which is a 2-year program. So if you don't have any income, then we probably want to put you in that type of program or connect you with LHA to get a voucher. You need to demonstrate that with this help, if we can help you temporarily, you will be able to then continue, independently covering your own housing costs.
One more here.
Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, do you have any data about how successful it is in the long term?
Yeah.
We have had some, we do now. We send out reports and we send out surveys every 6 months, and the reality is most people don't return them. And part of that is a lot of people, when I've talked to the case management staff at the Art Center, they're like, they come to us in one of their most vulnerable times in their lives. They don't want to keep reliving it. So even though part of the money we give is for incentives to return the surveys, the vast majority don't return surveys. But of the ones that we do get, or what we learn, and then what we learn is it's pretty successful. Most people are able to stay in their home, and when they have to leave, a lot of time it's out of their control. For example, I think if I go back to 2022 data, let me go back. I think in there it says one family moved out to avoid eviction, so they couldn't. So they rescinded their lease to try and avoid eviction. One family moved out due to landlords selling the home. They couldn't control that. The landlord was selling it. One family decided that it was too expensive here in Colorado and moved to another state. Another family moved to another city in Colorado. So out of what we know, out of the 55 remain housed at least at program exits. That's 3 to 6 months. Few years down the line, we don't know, unless they come back to the Art Center for help. And I'm trying to get that data from the Art Center, if someone's coming back for rental assistance or not. Many of them do come back because what happens is part of the case management is they get connected with the Art Center's food pantry, community market, other supports, so they can try and alleviate some of the household costs, opening up more dollars for rental to pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever. Okay, any more questions about? Yes.
One more.
Yes, sir.
The assistance you provide. So can you give us an example or like an average of, let's say the rent's $3,000 a month. Are we on average assisting half of that?
So we're up until this point, the most we probably would give was 1,000 of. If it was 3,000, we pay 1,000 of it.
1,000.
Yeah. So typically they're not that high. You're talking typically around 1,800 to 2,000. So it can be up to half or more. And sometimes, so it's also case specific. So for example, let's say that the family head of household is transitioning for a job and they don't get paid for another 2 weeks. So many times it's just one payment that just helps them get through that first rent, and then they're able to cover it moving forward. So it's very state specific, but to your point, if the rent is $3,000 up until now, we'd only pay, $1,000 for 3 months.
Okay.
All right. So now I'm going to talk about our homelessness work, which is another big chunk of what I do. And I will be sending. I sent this to so I'll make sure you all get this presentation, because there's a link on here that I'm going to go over here in a second that I want you to have. So since 2017, we joined. By the way, this is, I don't know if you know what this is. This is Zinnia. This is the Zinnia building that just opened with 55 permanent supportive housing units in Longmont. LHA, City of Longmont, and a whole bunch of other partners came together to make this possible. And it's always challenging, but we basically took out, we took 55 people off the street, and have awarded and housed them at Zinnia. Of course, there's always challenges with permanent supportive housing, and we can talk a whole lot about that. But I just wanted to share that picture because I think as a city, we should be proud to be part of that venture that we were part of. So we've been part of HSBC, Homelessness in Boulder County, and I'm going to talk real quick about what type of services. I got a little, and again, I apologize, I know the word, I probably should change, I'll change the font color. I should change the font color on this too, I did for the other ones. So, I just want to step on this. Let me just walk you through it. So we have in Longmont a couple of, several outreach efforts that are happening for people experiencing homelessness, right? So we have Public Safety, Lead and Core, they're out there in the streets doing outreach to people experiencing homelessness. We have the Works program from the county that does outreach. Their primary work, though, is they're doing harm reduction, trying to help people who are addicted not get diseases or not pass on diseases by giving them clean supplies and trying to connect them with recovery services. We fund Elder. The City of Longmont funds Elder through our Human Services Fund. Elder is a service of hope where you have a person with lived experience, somebody who's been homeless, and then a social worker together going out and trying to engage with people experiencing homelessness to provide the support so they can get engaged with services. Together is an agency out of Boulder, but they come and they help with youth. And Recovery Cafe, well, like the word says, they're doing recovery. And so we help fund all the light blue ones. The city helps fund to some extent or another. We don't fund the Works program from the county. So that's on the outreach side. These are folks going out, and we actually meet. I meet every Thursday with the majority of this group. Recovery Cafe hasn't come to our meetings, but I meet every Thursday with this group to check in on what they're seeing out there, encampments, people who need specific, trends that they're seeing, specific issues that they're seeing out there. And so we meet every week for at least half an hour to discuss what's happening. And we also have public safety there. So we got our community resource officers there to talk about how we work together to address these issues. It's very challenging. Homeless work I've been working in nonprofits and human services for a long time. Primarily before this, I did a lot of anti-poverty work. Homelessness is very challenging because it's got so much intersectionality. Poverty, you got mental health issues, you got substance use issues, criminal justice involvement. So there's just a lot of intersectionality. So it takes a lot of collaboration and working together to make a difference. So then once, let's say we get someone engaged, they want help, then we have some sheltering options. They can go to, we do have severe weather shelter on emergency nights if it's really, really cold. The city doesn't fund it. Hope provides it by itself. We don't fund that, but we do fund Hope's navigation shelter. So somebody goes through coordinated entry. All coordinated entry is an assessment that decides where you're going to go. You're either going to go to navigation shelter because you don't have a disability. Because I have volunteered at the shelter. I'm not sure if you guys, the shelter is a church fellowship room with mats on the floor. It's not a very comfortable place. I volunteered overnight a couple of times already. It is not a great place to sleep. And if you have some sort of disability, it is very difficult because you have to take care of yourself. So it's challenging to be at the shelter. Together does have youth sheltering in Boulder. Housing focus shelter is at all roads. It used to be the Boulder homeless shelter. It's a little better than what we have here in Longmont. At least they have beds and they have nice facilities, much nicer facilities than we have. And if you have a disability, you still have to take care of yourself, but they make it easier by the facilities they have. They have decent facilities, much more accessible than laying on a mat in a church fellowship room. And then recently, I'm proud that the city did help with the Veterans Community Project, and I mean help by not only funding them, but giving them a lot of waivers. And those are 24 tiny homes that are serving unhoused veterans, and so they've done a great job of that. And just a side note, really just so you know, there is this thing called Vision Zero out there. It's a national campaign to end veteran homelessness. And Boulder County and Longmont was recognized for having some of the best data in the state around who's homeless. The tracking that we do, the work that we do with our homeless vets was recognized nationally because of the work that we do with all of our partners. All right, so let me see. I'm going to show you this, and again, it'll be I'm going to click this link. This is a picture of in 2024, we started our data dashboard. So there's a lot of numbers, but if you want to learn more, let's see where it opens. Oh, I'm going to have to move it over. There we go. And it doesn't look great. How do I make it look great here? There it is. So if you want to learn about our data, we created this dashboard together. There's all sorts of data on, how many people. One of the things that we look at a lot that I'm very interested in is this first one. This is why it's up here, because I think people want to know is, of the people that we go through port of entry, how long have they been here? And you can see, in 2020, there was 255 folks that we went through port of entry that had been here at least 2 years or more. I will say, this is another kind of little side note. What's interesting is that we do this in Boulder and Longmont, and Boulder and Longmont are kind of the complete opposite. In the sense that primarily in Boulder, you see a lot of folks that are right here, the 1 month and less than 6 months. They have a lot of newcomers. In Longmont, we tend to see that typically about half are at least at the 1 year or more that have been here for that long. And that's been the same trend since 2017. So we're now in 2025, and that's been a trend that has stayed pretty consistent about who is in Longmont. We know folks that have been here that have been homeless in Longmont for over 20 years. Many times it's because
20 years.
20 years, yeah. I've known that. I can give you not names. They have handles, I guess. I don't know what you call them. That's what they're known as. And a lot of it is that they want to. Now it's a very small amount. I'm talking about extreme people that have been out there for 20 years that's their life.
They must like it.
They like the freedom.
Yeah.
They in particular, when they hear that they're going to be working with the government, they do not want to work with any government. They enjoy their freedom and their separation from the system. Again, that's a very, very small amount. Many folks do. But I just wanted to share this link with you because if you want to know more about our data, that's a wonderful place to go. Now, if you have deeper questions about data, you can email me and I can try and get it. But this shows there's a lot of stuff on this webpage that has our housing exits, a lot of terms that people need to understand when they're looking at homelessness work. What's an exit? What's an exit? All of these kinds of things. I would recommend you take a look at it. But I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on that. I just wanted to share it so you had it. Okay, so give you some quick Longmont data. And I'm almost done. So in 2024, through our partnerships, we had 101 people exiting homelessness. It's kind of high. I think the last time we had over 100 was in 2018. It ebbs and flows depending on the resources available. So there's no question that a big part of that was the opening of Zinnia. It ebbs and flows. I think the lowest we've ever had is in the 50s, and I think this is either the second highest or the highest that we've been able to exit out of homelessness. And when we call it an exit, there's three things that we define as an exit. One is you get housed, whether it be subsidized, market rent, market rates, or whatever. Two is you get reunified. So the folks over at Hope work with people's families to try and do mediation and get them back together to accept the person back into the family. Or three, if it's a substance use, we get you somehow into an long-term inpatient situation. Those are typically far and few between, but we do get some folks that we are able to get into long-term inpatient substance recovery situations. So we did 110 vital documents. Now, why do I put that? Because one of the biggest challenges that people experiencing homelessness have is not having any of their records, whether it be birth certificate, identification card, whatever. They lose them or they get stolen, and that's a big requirement to get housed. You need to have those things in order to apply for housing support. And so that's a lot of work. And then I just put the number, just so you know, the number of shelter stays. These are not unduplicated. We had over 10,000 shelter stays in 2024 in Longmont. So that's a lot of people staying at the shelter. All right, I am done. Any questions? Yes.
Are there any demographic groups that are more at risk than others?
So people of color are usually highly, when you look at the number of people of color in Boulder County and the number of people of color that are experiencing homelessness, it is a higher representation than it should be. Now, for this group, what's interesting is what we are seeing, and I can ask for a deeper dive into that data. In 2024, we started to see more older adults become first-time homeless. A lot of that has to do with increasing housing costs on fixed incomes, loss of partners, those kinds of things. We're starting to see a trend, and I can get more data for this group. But those are the BIPOC folks. People of color tend to be the highly represented in the unhoused population. And then also, like I said, we are seeing a trend of older adults being first-time homeless. In other words, they're not folks that have been unhoused before. They're just experiencing, again, increased costs and fixed incomes can create some challenges.
Are there people that literally spend the night on the street, or if someone, there are those exceptions that you were talking about, but if they want housing, can people generally find it?
Not generally, not quickly, no. And that's why we have sheltering programs, right?
Shelter.
Yeah. If they want to find shelter, yes, there's a.
That's what I meant.
But I want to be very upfront about this. One of the things when we created HSBC, one of the big push from the community was accountability. So if you want to use our sheltering program here in Longmont, you are agreed to try and work on a housing plan and meeting with a case manager, at least every 2 weeks. And if you can't do that, then you may lose access to shelter. Because that was one of the big pushes when we were creating this system, is we wanted accountability. We want to help people, but we want to make sure that they're engaged in trying to help themselves as well. So yeah, there's shelter for definitely. And now we don't have during severe weather situations, they don't consider CE. As long as you're not banned. Now there are people who are banned because of, they threatened somebody, they committed an act of violence in the shelter, and so for that's just safety situations. Folks can't use it if they're that. But even then, Hope is willing to work with people during extreme weather situations to see if there's a way they can work it out. But they want to keep everybody safe, and if you come to the shelter and you committed some sort of act of violence or threatened someone, then more likely than not you will lose your access to the shelter. Yes.
I'm very interested in information you get about older Americans being unhoused.
I don't know about nationally, but I can tell you locally.
That'd be great. I'd love to get that.
Yes, I'll talk to our county partners to try and get us that data
Great.
for 2024.
Also, the last slide you had, it showed number of stays. What does that mean?
That's how many people stayed at the shelter throughout the year.
Of the year.
So
This is all the whole year.
So 10,000 people.
10,000 stays. It could be that people stayed 40 days and the same person. Yeah, it's not unduplicated, it's just a number of stays.
Thank you.
Yes?
I understand to get into the shelter, you have to go through coordinated
Yes.
entry. Is that requirement for severe weather days?
No. No. The big requirement there is you're not banned, right? That's the big thing. If
So if somebody hasn't gone through coordinated entry, they can still get a shelter on severe weather days.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually one more thing I wanted to mention, because I didn't put it in this because it's so new. You know, with Christina's leadership, we've been seeing also a trend of families experiencing homelessness. And in 2024, Christina asked council for some funding, not a whole lot of funding, but some funding for a family hotel program during emergency weather situations. And it took us a while to go through all the you know, just the process to get a hotel to say yes.
Right.
A lot of them said no, and we finally got someone to say yes, and then I had to go through risk management, all of this just due process that needed to take place. And we finally got a hotel in place, and so far we've had, since December, we've had 4 families with young children, because there is no family shelter in Boulder County, for that matter. Outside of the DV shelter, we do have DV shelters that will take families, but we've helped 4 families with hotel stays during the, it's been cold in early January. It's warm right now, but it's, during the cold weather, we've been able to help 4 families with hotel shelter stays.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Is there just one coordinated entry point?
So coordinated entry is a phone call that you call, but our outreach workers out there is trained to do coordinated entry as well, and that's just an assessment. There's not one physical point that you do it. It's a phone call, a phone number you call. You can go to Hope; they have people trained to do there as well. But it's primarily a phone call, or our outreach workers do it, or you can do it sometimes. I believe that when you go to the shelter, they might have somebody who can do coordinated entry. We try and make it as accessible as possible.
I was gonna say, they do have it in Boulder, and there's a website that explains everything and the hours and the phone that the number you can call later.
Yeah, we have a number here in Longmont.
Yeah.
And the Art Center, or not just Hope, has their outreach center where you can go on 804 South Lincoln, that you can go and they can provide all sorts of resources as well.
Any more questions for Alberto?
I was just gonna say, do you wanna mention pets?
That's a big challenge for us.
Well, I mean, talking about self-determination, why people choose to.
Yeah, that is true. That's also a really good point. So, because of where they are using shelters, and because of safety, allergies, all sorts of stuff, the shelter doesn't accept pets. And there are people experiencing homelessness that have pets. And so unfortunately, many of them will choose to stay outside and stay with their pets than give up the pets or foster the pets. And that's a challenge, but we understand that. Now there is a new agency that's up and running that is trying to help as much as they can, but they're small, called Annie and Millie's Place. And they do try to provide support for folks that are, especially during extreme weather, they might find a hotel that takes pets and they'll put them up for a night or two during the extreme weather situation. But yeah, that's definitely a challenge that we've had for years. Is because of where they're doing it, they just don't take pets. Actually, the only place that I know that takes pets, the only shelter that I know in the state, and I've done some research, is a shelter in Grand Junction. There might be new ones that do, but Grand Junction, what they did is they built some extra little shelters outside so folks with pets can go there. They're not now in the main shelter area, but they were able to get some funding and build a few places so that people with pets can go. There's not a lot of places that take pets. Yes.
Is there a big sanitation problem in Longmont with the homeless?
I would just say big, but there definitely is one. Yeah, encampments are an issue. I know that our parks and folks pay a lot of money every year, contractors to take care of encampments. But again, I wouldn't say big. I think the number of, it's very hard to determine how many people are unsheltered or unhoused in Longmont that are on the streets. I've seen numbers from PD, they did some surveys, they counted up to 126. I've heard from, we just did numbers aren't official, but we just did what's called the point in time count in January, and it was 70. So I would say between 70 and 150 people are out on the streets right now that are unsheltered. But it's hard to tell because people move on. There are people that come through, stay for a few days, and then move on to another destination. So it's very difficult to tell the exact number of people that are out there. Yes.
I just want to point out too that if anybody experiencing homelessness or even a temporary health issue, they can always use the Longmont Humane Society for their animals. They will temporarily take care of them while
Yeah.
anybody's going through anything.
Well, that's good to know. I just think people don't want to give up their home, don't want to give up their pets. It's very difficult.
Exactly. But if somebody is experiencing anything they kind of know how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
They can always use
That's
Longmont
great.
Humane, and they'll temporarily take care of their pets.
That's great to know.
That's good to know.
That's
Any other questions for Alberto? Thank you so much, that's really informational.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll send this to Christina. I'll clean it up a little bit, make those numbers more easy to see, and I'll send it to her so she can share it with, or I'll send it to Ryan so he can share with this board.
Veronica,
Thank you.
would you like to add a little something to that?
Oh,
From the
add.
senior center's perspective?
Yeah. So I can't recall the numbers offhand, but we do see a number of unhoused folks, as the front desk will attest to as well. Sometimes they come and see us for housing options, the ones that want to pursue that. And so, just to echo what Heriberto said, yes, some folks become unhoused because there was a change in their situation, the rents, or they lost their, some people lose their home that they've had for years because they can't make mortgage payments, or the rents are higher so they can't afford it, or they lost a partner. So yeah, we see that. And we've seen it, I've seen it increase since I've been here for as long as I've been here, it's been increasing. And some people ask for help and others don't. Others have been housed and become unhoused again for whatever reason. Some of them do have substance and alcohol. They abuse that, or issues. So yeah, we see that. Go ahead.
Can you talk about the last resort fund and what you've seen as far as cost? What's happened with that over the last, because that's one thing Alberto brought up is
Right.
how the burden of housing costs is going up, and what's being done here with last resort?
So similar to when he spoke about the homesteading program, we don't do per se case management, but we do follow people that sometimes we help out. And part of that is we collaborate with folks like the R Center or Area Agency on Aging. They also offer a fund that we can use, and of course, last resort. So we do it used to be that I would help in the past when I first started here. $200, $300 would help people maintain and be able to stay in their homes in the early 2000s. And now, as we are here in 2025, it's more like 1,000, where we have to help people maintain their homes because the rents are just getting higher, and roommate situations sometimes don't work. And as a result, that's another situation where people become homeless and they get evicted because that roommate situation didn't work out.
The other thing too is the eviction help that you all have done. When people are facing, you get a notice that someone's being evicted,
Right.
that you are able to help that too.
Right, so we get notices from the Community Neighborhood Resources weekly. There's 2 dockets, one for the county and one for the city courts. And so not the city courts, the county courts. But so we are alerted sometimes that folks are getting evicted. And a lot of times the folks have already called us and let us know that they're in the eviction process. So sometimes you're able to pause that. And we come in and try to help navigate that. Sometimes it's financial help they need, but other supports as well. It's like, what other resources are they not getting? Why are they being evicted? Is it because they can't, do they need higher level of care? They're in their home and they're not managing anymore? And do they need some time to get the resources such as long-term care and Medicaid to be able to transition to a higher level of care, which could be assisted living or a long-term care facility and a nursing home? So a lot of times we buy people time with the help that we provide to get them into a more stable and safe situation, whether that be to remain in the home and get the services they need at home, or transition them to, again, a higher level of care. I think Ronnie had.
And you were talking about all those contacts, and just for the advisory board, our supportive services team as a whole had 806 contacts with clients around housing specifically this past year, 2024. 806. So when we say contacts, yep, and when we say contacts, it could be the same individual multiple times, but 806 contacts.
So when people come, and I just wanted to let you all know that people come to the front desk and say they're losing housing, or they can't afford where they live, or they're already living in their vehicle, because we do have those people that choose to live in their vehicle with their pets, or just choose to live in the vehicle because sometimes somebody, many years ago, I wanted to help, I wanted to go above and beyond. I think I was working a little harder than the client, and she told me, she said, kiss. And I go, kiss. And she said, just keep it simple. I don't want any government involvement. I just want to live on my own and live in my car. So some people do choose to live that way, but when they want help, Boulder County Area Agency on Aging has a Boulder County Housing Guide for older adults and their families, and it gives you information on countywide different housing options, whether they're independent senior it's all senior housing for the most part. So independent senior housing, assisted living, and long-term care facility, which is a nursing homes. So this is a great resource for people that do come across needing a change, whether they were living in their home or they're living in market rentals and now they need subsidized because they retired and they realize that their Social Security or their pension is not going very far and they'll need to get on the wait list. Because all this is wait list. If you want to live affordable and in housing that is subsidized, they're all wait lists anywhere from 9 months to 2 years, depending on the situation. And this is countywide. So we are lucky that we have this great housing guide that was reissued just this past year, so it's pretty updated. And then we created a housing information folder for our residents here in Longmont that come and ask us, or anybody. And so we make it, we have applications, color-coded, we have an intro letter that kind of tells you step by step about some of the housing options here in Longmont specifically. So this has been a helpful tool to help our older adults guide them in their housing options. So we use this a lot. I think the front desk will tell you this is like hot tamales or hot cakes. If you get them out, we have to restock. And then finally, I think you all know about our rec cards. This is information on what supportive services provides. It just gives you information on how we can help older adults and their caregivers. And then because you all requested a Spanish rec card, we also have those as well to provide and give out. And we also have some of the housing guide applications. As long as the housing sites provide us with Spanish applications, we provide those as well. So.
I've always had the misconception that people knew what options there were for shelter. But you're saying that a lack of information is really a big issue, is that right?
You know, a lot of people don't understand the coordinated entry process, and sometimes it is just, there is, actually a city came up with flyers that have different, I didn't bring that, but we have them in the atrium. There is a flyer that the city provides on people looking for housing resources. So it gives you the rundown on how the coordinated entry works, and then it gives you other options like what he said, there's a safe shelter, it gives you pantry information, I don't know, it gives you, provides, it's just an array of things. It's an actual transportation. And this is a good segue probably, unless you guys have other questions. Yeah, but it does. I think you're right. Education is what's out there. People, when they're facing homelessness, really, they don't know where to start. And if they find us, I'm hoping they get some direction, guidance, and really hope that there's something out there. It might not be immediate, like Eliberto said. I mean, people come knocking on our doors and they want housing. They think we have housing. We don't have housing. I mean, the city has LHA, but all those are waitlist. But the senior center does not have housing. That's a misconception, by the way. But yeah, you're right. It's the education piece that's important.
Is there any way that they're gonna reinstitute safe lots?
No, probably, that's not a question for me, that's a hope of
Safe
Habitat.
lots.
So it's where people were able to park their vehicle, and again, they have to have accountability and a plan, sustainability plan. They have to have at least employment or plan to find housing within, I think, a month to 6 weeks. So, you know, I don't know, I think also I mean, if you have to have volunteers to do after hours shelter, you also have to have staff and volunteers to do the safe lot. So, I mean, it's maybe.
I just wondered, because I used to volunteer at Westview, and that's where they had one of the safe lots program, and it seemed to be a good thing.
It's really a really expensive program to run, and I think that financially, Hope just had to make some decisions. Were they gonna do street outreach? Were they gonna do safe lots? And I think it just came down to some really tough decisions.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Veronica? Thank you for all that you do and for letting us know.
Thank you for.
Thanks, Veronica.
For all your help and recommendations and advocacy around unhoused folks. And transportation, I'm gonna stay for your transportation.
Are you?
Oh.
Should we do a drum roll for you and Kaylee, or that's enough? Is that Kaylee?
That's Kaylee, yes.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Kaylee Dillon is our new transportation planner with the city of Longmont. She's been here 4 months. So we're really excited to have staff finally, besides 1 or 2 of us. It's good to have now 4. So we doubled our staff. So that's one of the big accomplishments in 2024 that we've been talking about. So it's allowed me to kind of get this other piece done too, a little quicker hopefully. So my name is Phil Greenwald. I'm the transportation planning manager of the city. I think we've all met before, so it's good to see all the familiar faces and talk to you again. I think last time we were here, we were talking about microtransit. And so Kaylee is now running our microtransit program, so she's got some flyers in the back. We do have some Spanish ones in the car back as well, so we have some English ones with us, but I think you've seen them out there, hopefully. And so we're excited to kind of show how that program fits into the transportation mobility plan for the city. And Arlene Zortman has been our representative, a very active representative with the transportation mobility plan. I can say,
That's a nice way to say it.
well, I was going to say, we have some people who didn't really come a lot, and we can count on Arlene to always be there and support this group. So she was supporting your advisory board, so you should be very proud of the amount of attendance and her involvement. It was wonderful. So I really appreciate it. So thank you. Anyway, to get on with the show, as it were, we did send out yesterday, hopefully you got it, the links. And they are now working. So there was a little issue with one of the links that some people saw it, some people didn't. So I was one of the people that couldn't see it. You probably were too, so hopefully you've got that too now. And that was the PDF file, the one that's the real file of the plan. The other one is more of the what we call a story map. And so the story map really gets into the ideas of doing a very quick summarization of the plan so you can get into the pieces that you want to get into, not have to flip through pages to kind of get to it. So our story map is pretty exciting. Hope you get a chance to look into that some more as you can. We are today going to ask you for a recommendation, possibly, based on some of the other things that you know about the Transportation Mobility Plan and all the things that we've kind of talked about previously, and the pieces that Arlene has shared with you, hopefully. And again, it can be conditional. It could be, hey, we don't want to take a stand, we don't want to take a position at this time to recommend to council the plan, or it could be a full recommendation, which was what we would ask for at the end. And then we'll talk a little bit about those next steps going to council. But we are at the very end of this planning process. So we're just going back out to the public to just kind of say, hey, did we get it right from what you told us, from what you knew was going to be part of this plan? Did we get it pretty much right? I mean, we're not going to get all the details, but did we get it right? And so that was, we're in our 15th month of this process. So we did start October of 2023. We did, you can see here the timeline. I think you know pretty much how this went through, but phase one was winter, spring of 2024. The project really was the idea of putting together visions and goals, get the existing state of the transportation piece, capture that feedback, really go out to the public in a big, broad effort at the library. We went out and had an open house and did a lot of online events too. Phase two is more of those draft recommendations in the summer of 2024, this last summer, and then prioritizing that list of capital improvement projects is really the construction piece of this. What are we going to build to make the transportation better? What are we going to buy to make the transportation better? And so we got feedback on a lot of those recommendations as well through that process. And now we're in the final phase, the one on the far right side. The final Longmont TMP will be submitted to City Council for adoption. We'll talk more about that in late February. So our community engagement, we did have the open house. We had a number of steering committees. We had a second open house as well. We did the online survey. We had intercept events where we go to different city functions and try to talk to people more and more at those functions. And then the focus groups where we went out to specific groups that we may not have heard back from very often. Not necessarily homeless, but very close to homeless folks that really don't get to say what their issues are. So we went out and talked to the people directly. So unfortunately, my picture's in there a little too often, but so I gotta fix that. But anyway, so we had 1,350 total touch points with all those different pieces. And I know you said a community of 100,000 people or more. What kind of percentage is that? But for this kind of effort, this is a really good. I think everybody was pretty pleased with that number of input to the transportation. So the two TMP, the Transportation Mobility Plan documents that are out there, we talked about this a little earlier, is that story map that really lets you kind of decide which chapters, what you want to look at. Are you interested in bicycling? Are you interested in transit? Look at those different things and you can really zero in on those maps. You can start to click on little elements of those maps and it'll tell you kind of what's coming in the future years or what's already there. You can also do the full plan PDF, which is that larger file. It's page by page. We can put those out for you too. If you don't have access, or people don't have access to a computer, let us know. We can print that packet out for folks and give it to them and they can read it that way. So walking is one of the primary pieces, obviously, of the transportation system. At some point in the process, we are all walkers or rollers with mobility assistant device. So at some point, we all need to be able to walk to from our car, from a bus, from where we work or live or where we've been partaking in some entertainment maybe. So the goal there was to fill the sidewalk gaps and upgrade sidewalks that are narrow or in poor condition. We have some gaps in the system, missing sidewalk gaps. So we really want to prioritize sidewalk projects based on community need. So we based that on the idea that we should really have a couple tiers of how we look at the system. And the number one tier was arterial served by transit. Then tier 2 was other streets served by transit. Tier 3 was arterial streets close to key destinations. Tier 4, other streets close to key destinations. And then 5 was all other streets. So we're really gonna look at this in a systematic way when we start looking at how we improve the sidewalk system. So the number one was really the arterial served by transit as being that top tier. And you can see how that kind of breaks out a little bit as we zoom in on that map. It's kind of hard to see on this map, on this wall, but you get the idea, I think, that that's Main Street down the middle. We have 9th, we have 3rd, served by various elements of transit. So those things can show up that way. And we can still make comments on these, so if you see elements that you don't agree with or you don't think are correct, like when I look at 9th, I know what transit they're talking about, it's the flex bus. But that bus doesn't stop except at 9th and Kaufman, so I need to point out that element to our folks and just make sure we clear that up as far as one of those pieces. Biking, so making biking more comfortable everywhere in Longmont. And that's really about level of stress as you're riding along. Do you feel a car right on your elbow or your elbow, depending on which way you're driving? Or do you have more of a greenway feel where you kind of don't need to worry about everything that's going on, just that you're riding. So we're talking about the level of stress, whatever it goes. And the recommendation is to add new bike facilities, improve the comfort of existing facilities, and develop associated standards for the bicycle trails and new things that are on the street. Like, how do we separate a bicycle way? Right now, it's just a painted line. If you have a bike lane, it's just a painted line or two. The idea is new standards might allow for a painted buffer or even maybe a physical device. And you'll see these in Fort Collins and Boulder and Denver. And they've got these things called bollards, those long poles in the middle. And they'll put them down the street, right? It starts to get to be like a forest of bollards, and you get a little worried. But you can do it in the right way. So we've learned a lot over the years on how to install those correctly and make them look better and really provide a very visual separation, a physical separation. And then there's other ways you can do it too, that really provide a place where cars can move across. And you see that in Boulder on Baseline Road, where they've got a short little, it's called a Jersey barrier. It's one of those concrete barriers, and it's just high enough so the cars can't cross and bikes can't really cross. That's kind of the higher level. So we talk about those, but the idea is really talk about the buffered lanes and the separated lanes first, or the protected lanes. And so we've got those on this map too, and you can kind of zoom in. There's an interesting little slider feature. You see that double arrow circle? So you can kind of slide it over what we have today and then what we're proposing for in the future. So you can kind of slide it and see how your area or how much area in Longmont will change.
Bill,
Yes, ma'am.
I may be the only one in this whole town that has this problem, but at night, if you have just a line going down, is there a way to put some sort of a, something that reflects back up so that you can see that? Because a lot of times, your bicyclists don't have on-reflective glare. So when you're driving at night, it just would be nice. Is there a way to do that?
There is. You can put things on the ground, but the only thing that concerns us with those are maintenance. Because there's an epoxy that applies them to the ground, and they bump up a little bit. So as you bring a plow over them, they're the first thing to go. That first storm, that's the first thing to go. So there are ways to do it where you dent it into the ground, and you can make it so the plows can go right over it, and it dents in. But of course, when the snow packs on top of it, it's harder to see. But we saw snow in January a little bit. We shoveled a few times, and now it's gone off the streets, right? It melted pretty quickly. It's a beautiful Chinook wind out there today, too. So I think those are things we can get past. And the bollards help, too, because they're up out of the ground, and they've got reflective tape on all sides of the bollard. So that's one of the things.
Does the plan identify the bollards with the anticipation for installing them?
Well, it anticipates the places where we would have some kind of physical separation, or vertical separation is what it's called. So whether that's the bollards, or whether that's the short wall that I was talking about, or whether it's something else, there's also these little bumpers, like those parking stops that you have in the parking lots. You can get little rubberized ones of those. And that provides a little bit of a physical separation too. So if you started crossing over as a car, you actually hit something physical that makes you realize, you know, as if people are looking at their phone, which unfortunately they still do, even though there's a law now. But that will help people kind of, if you bump it, you'll get back into your lane and not cross over.
And is there a budget for these items that you're proposing, or is that just what you'd like to have?
Well, what we do, there's a couple of ways we pay for these things. And one is we have kind of an ongoing, it's called a transportation system management budget. So it's just kind of an ongoing budget where if we identify these and they need to be new, we can program dollars out of that. If it gets too much, then we want to go for a grant dollars. There's state, there's regional, and there's federal grants for that. And then also the last piece is as people come in and develop, we can have them build the project, pay them back for the pieces that go beyond their portion of the project, but have them build the project in front. And so there's a couple different ways that we can do this. And that goes for streets, sidewalks, all these different things that we're talking about, bus stops, all these things. It's kind of a group effort. So improve transit within Longmont, pretty simple goal. But how do we do that? We increase the frequency and coverage of local and regional transit, improve the bus stop experience. So we don't have the microtransit in here because we feel like we're already on that path. So really, how do we do the other layers of transit that make it all work together? It's not just microtransit getting us across town. It's about how do we get to Fort Collins, Denver, Boulder, points, Southwest Lowell County, even how do they get in here? So we're talking about how we increase that for all experiences. And you'll see here, we talked a little bit about the regional pieces, and we do have some interesting things that are coming forward that we've heard about. Bus to Estes Park in Longmont. So that's a grant that's been requested by a different entity than us, but something we need to plan for. And then the bus rapid transit pieces that go down to Broomfield on 287, so quicker bus service so that it competes better with driving. We've got the things coming on the diagonal to Boulder. That'll be up and running hopefully by 2027. So 2 years from now, we're hoping that we have that route going and the bus stops to support it. And then you'll see some park and rides on there that are going to support that, and some new transit centers that really support the bus rapid transit as well. So there's a couple things going on there. Also, we talked about bus stop amenities, so making it so people can not have to sit in a gutter, basically. I mean, a lot of the bus stops that we have today are just sticks in the ground, and you're basically standing. And if you're not able to stand for that long, you're taking a seat on the grass or on the gutter piece on the curb there, the curb and gutter. So we don't want that, and one of our big pushes is to get seats. We've installed, it's not very many, but over the last year we've installed 12 of these little tiny micro seats and mini seats that are like 2 seats kind of put together. And so we're trying to get that program rolling even larger so we can put more of these seats around for people to sit.
Hey Phil,
Yes.
question for you. On the transit, so say the bus transit, and I assume you're going to talk about the train eventually? Or?
The train is on here too. We do show it as a future regional transit route. You can kind of see the dotted line. There's 2 dotted lines next to each other, parallel routes. The right one is the train route, and the left one is more the 287 bus rapid transit route. So we're planning for both, or all. So
Does your plan then get submitted to the state?
we can use it. We can use it for. We don't submit it to the state necessarily, but we use it when applying for funding. So they'll ask, "Is that on a plan?"
Like HB 1313, right?
Yeah.
The building housing along transit corridors and things like that, right? So I would imagine the state is going to try to enforce that. Therefore, you're going to have to submit or somehow communicate to them where you're putting in these transit.
Right.
These approved
and then there's
transit.
also a frequency
Rapid
piece to that too. Right?
What's that?
There's a frequency piece to that too. So the
That's
transit,
right, the 15
not
minutes.
just there, but it has to run 15 minutes. Yeah. So this will be used if the state requests it. But we've kind of met all those state rules as far as
Okay.
minimum parking, we got rid of our minimum parking standards last year as well, so that was one of the big things the state was pushing to, so you can build more transit oriented development and allow that with not having to build as much parking. We found that it's actually been pretty easy for us to work through that, so that's gone forward. But yeah, we would use this map if requested, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have is areas that are being densified. Example would be Nelson Road, behind Home Depot, and then other parts along there towards the southwest Longmont, and then Martin Road, where all that those apartment complexes. Is there any changes you see to those roads as a result of that increased densification, or?
Absolutely, yeah. We have the developers actually improve the roadways. One of the big things I know you've been tracking is Quail Road annexation, 89 Quail Road. And one of the big things with all those different developments that come along the line is how do you improve the roadway? As you know, on the north side of Clover Basin Drive, there's nothing, right? And we actually have a bus stop out there, and it's a really tough one to sit at or get to, much less stand at for a number of minutes. So one of the things we've had the developer do is build up the roadway, build up the sidewalk. We've been talking to them about different ways to slow traffic in the area. So we do work, it's all interwoven, all these things. I mean, I talk about them separately, but it's all interwoven, all these different pieces, walking, bicycling, transit, roadways, and we'll get to the roadways as well, but they're all together. It's all, part of making our system work for everyone. Being able to have a choice on how you get around. Because we know we're not asking you to get out of your car necessarily and just not use it anymore. We're saying we understand that cars are essential in this city, but if you have a choice, there are people who come to us all the time and say, "Hey, your bicycling facilities are terrible. Make them better connected. Make them lower stress, and I would get on them." We're trying to work to that too. If the transit was better, I would take the transit, and we're seeing that with microtransit, that people are putting their money where their mouth is. So it's been really great to see the number of riders on that system, which Kaylee can talk a little bit more about if you'd like to hear. But so roadway, making driving safe for all, basically for all modes. So the roadway does all these functions, right? It has the bike, it has the drivers, it has the buses, it does all the work. So the roadways are really critical when we talk about this. And so we're going to focus on safety projects. And we're only going to add capacity, and this is a policy decision from our council. They only want to see capacity added when it improves safety for all roads. So that's one of the impacts that we're looking at. So this is our proposed roadway projects, kind of just a quick snapshot. All the little dots are showing us intersection projects where we do multimodal, signalized intersection, capacity increases where we do need to move more people, but those capacity increases would be done in a safe way and apply to all modes. It wouldn't just be to make sure cars can go through there quick, faster. It's all modes. And then we show the roadway projects and more of those line pieces, and then bike-related roadway projects as well. So you kind of get the whole gamut here with all the different pieces that are going on with roadways. And we are hoping to make it so people can get to their destination safely, comfortably, and conveniently. And then there's some programs that we just like to chat about too, making walking, biking, and transit more accessible and convenient. Again, to have them compete a little bit more and make them more of a viable choice when you're making decisions about how to get around town, rather than just having to say, well, shoot, I have to get in my car. Or a lot of people in the town, you'd be surprised, the percentage is about 20, or no, it's, I better not say exact percentage, but there's a lot of people in this town that don't own a car or don't have access to a vehicle. So we're trying to make sure that we accommodate that as well. It's kind of a very quiet population because it's people getting rides from others sometimes and working a number of jobs, and so we don't hear as much from them, but we do see it in the census data. So some of the programs are just the idea that we need to maintain these facilities. And of course that costs a lot of money to maintain. So that's a big chunk of our budget every year. It's just maintaining our roads and bicycle ways, sidewalks, and those kind of things. Luckily, we don't have to do too much with transit because that's run by the Regional Transportation District for the most part. So they do their work on their end. The bicycle pedestrian amenities, though, that's a growing piece because a lot of people are starting to buy e-bikes. In fact, e-bikes are outpacing e-vehicles in sales. So people want accommodations now. How do I use my e-bike safely in this town? And how do I get through it safely? So we're gonna see that ramping up, and we're gonna have to have that separation, right, between vehicles and bicycles to be safe in this town. Wayfinding and signage is critical. You see the new stuff that's kind of happening in the downtown. There's some new signage down there, and this is an example of that. If you look at that, that's actually in the city of Longmont, which is great. Emergency and evacuation planning, that's seen as critical with the recent wildfires all around the country and world, and in our area as well. Curbside and parking management, so as microtransit's taking off, as these different things are taking off, how do you get people to that front of door as quick as possible, especially along Main Street where we have a lot of on-street parking. We're having a difficult time with the microtransit especially, getting people to that front door because you can't stop in the lane of traffic, right? So how do we better manage that curb space? And then I just talked about e-bike policy and education. That's really education for everybody, not just e-bikes, but how do we accommodate this growing trend? Vision Zero. Filiberto mentioned Vision Zero, but I think he meant functional zero. We're getting a lot of communication back and forth. So functional zero is really the idea of the veterans, having no veterans on the streets. Vision Zero is the vision that 0 deaths are acceptable. Like we don't accept anything more than 0 as far as deaths on our roadways. So that's the vision, and the city has adopted that Vision Zero policy. Safe routes to schools, obviously we want the children to be safe that are trying to get to school. Unfortunately, a lot of them have to be driven, and then that creates a lot of congestion near schools. We all see that at school times. I think we all try to avoid driving near schools at the beginning and the end of schools. I can go through all of these, but just to let you know, we're looking at emerging mobility as well. And there's a lot of different things that are happening there as well with electric vehicles, shared mobility. The autonomous vehicles are coming. We just got to get ready for these vehicles that can drive without drivers, ride without drivers. So they're all, if anybody's been to Phoenix or San Francisco or Atlanta or any of these places where it's nicer weather, they're using them. And so it's a little strange when you're walking along and nobody's driving that car and it's a whole car basically that's going around.
Well,
So
the deliveries, the delivery boxes that go.
oh yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even talk about that, but that's something that's the little tubs that run around. Yeah, so we are thinking about it, but we are, it's like how do we plan for that? We're trying to make the sidewalks better. We're trying to make the streets better. So. And then implementation, we talked about, how do who buys this? Where's the money for all of this? This plan is really set to start to prioritize all these projects as they come forward, and how do we build them in a facilitated manner, one that makes sense and that has some, commonalities that work for all the different modes. So we got a plan monitoring table that will really look at how all these things kind of come together, all the different pieces of them. And you'll see those in the PDF version of the plan. There's lots of tables of the different ways that the different criteria we've used to kind of sort these and bring the top priorities that really include that safety piece, improved biking, and the transit investments so that we're better competing with the automobile again.
Hey Phil, how much, any estimate on the amount of federal funding going into some of these plans? Or is it all state?
Well, we've been very successful in the last 25 years, I would say. Ebbs and flows, but we've been very successful with federal funding over those years. What we've seen recently, very recently in the last month or two, is a very much closer look at the federal funding spending. And so all of our funding that's in the pipeline now for federal dollars is getting reevaluated. So that's tough because Typically, those dollars would have been safe because they were passed by a previous Congress, last year's Congress. So now we have to kind of go through the process again of, do other standards that weren't there when we originally went for those dollars. So and then additionally, there's been, I think it's been a 90% cut in those dollars since January. So we've seen a 90% cut in the federal dollars for transportation programs overall. So we have to work under these new rules, new game to play, right? So we'll work with that and we'll figure it out. A lot of our dollars do come from state, and we have some regional dollars from Regional Transportation District to help support microtransit. So they pay about a third of the total cost of that. We were hoping to get some federal dollars from Representative Magoose's office. Those dollars are up in the air right now. So we thought we had them, and we're not sure. Next step, so the project team is requesting basically this board's general recommendation for council approval of this transportation mobility plan with the bigger, broader ideas of transportation. Again, there's lots of specifics that we're asking you not to delve into necessarily, that every project be on your list as being high priority or low priority. We're just asking you to kind of accept the idea that there's a general umbrella statement of how this is moving forward, and it really does talk about a little bit of the flipping of the paradigm, so that we're looking at walking, bicycling, transit riders first, because we really feel like we've really spent a lot of money and resources on the vehicular system for the last 100 years, really. So we're trying to shift that paradigm based on what our council direction has been. So we would just ask you, if you'd like to, again, take up that issue and give us a recommendation, would be wonderful, but we understand you haven't really seen too much of the plan yet. We only put it out yesterday, so I understand that piece of it, so we would certainly understand that. And if there's caveats to a recommendation, we could also understand that as well. Our schedule is February 11th. The community review of the plan closes, so not very much time, just like a week to kind of get it out there and just say, is this what you'd like? And we have a comment form in there. And then February 25th, we'd like to get it up to City Council for adoption. And so that's what we're looking for today. Appreciate your time, and time for questions.
I had a question. You have a question. I love it when a plan comes together. I really like what the city has done, and I think you've done a really good job with all the pieces that you're talking about. I mean, trying to be inclusive. Let me ask you a hypothetical. I don't know how far this goes. My next door neighbor is close to 90 years old, maybe 90, anyway, very frail. She likes to go around and fall, but she's active as she can be, but she needs help to get around. So is her situation beyond what this whole system is meant to serve?
No, I think that goes back to some of our programming pieces that we talked about under programs, and really trying to get the education and the different ways to get around out to people. It's really under this idea of transportation demand management, and really trying to use education as a component of that, managing that demand. So there's a demand that she has of getting out and about. Does she want to get to the library? Does she want to get to the senior center? Does she want to get to these different places? Or is she just trying to get exercise? Either way, we're trying to build a system for all people. So the most vulnerable users, we want to make sure there's an adequate sidewalk system, so she's not tripping on these on tripping hazards that are on the sidewalk. We want to make sure that if she wants to get a little further distance, that we can help her with a microtransit ride. It costs $1 for a person.
So that would include coming up to the door and helping out to the van?
Well, we also have the Via Mobility vans too. That Via Mobility offers a great service, as well as we have accessoride vans. Again, it's all layers of these different components. So I think they can all work together to help this person that you're talking about.
What do you need from us? Do you need us to just say we go along with your recommendations? I mean, I think I've been involved in this a little bit more. Today,
We're just saying that if we can get a recommendation to the city council for approval of this plan, that would be ideal for us.
I'd like to have a motion before the board to do that.
Sure, I'll make a motion to send this recommendation to council for approval. The things that are critical are the sidewalks and transit, of course bicycles too, but everything on here I think is important.
So you restate the motion? Second?
A second.
Approval of the board?
We can add it to our recommendations we make to council.
I do have a question on the floor. So I was looking at your map here, and at Martin, which we know there's a tremendous amount of development occurring on Martin Street, say between 3rd and 119. But I don't see any of your, I don't see anything being done here on the map, anything proposed. Maybe I'm missing something.
For the roadway projects, no, we feel like that's an adequate roadway, but we feel like as the development comes in, we're gonna make it built to our standard, which includes sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah.
It does include the curb and gutter piece, which is missing on one side of Martin. So as those developments come through, and quite frankly, the city is one of the landowners along there, so we would build our piece as well, so.
Okay. Thank you.
We don't show that necessarily as.
You wouldn't show it on the roadway piece, but you show it on the other piece.
There's a motion and a second. Board approval, and how you ask for that.
All in favor?
That's it. All those in favor?
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for your recommendation.
And now, will Kaylee speak to us about the,
She can, she's.
oh, we'd like to hear from that.
Yeah, the first time I'm happy to give a presentation on it.
How much time do you need?
I've got it ready to go for like 10-15 minutes if that works.
You're fighting the pizza in the back of the room.
Yeah, I don't want to stand in the middle.
Let's take a short break.
I would make it, yeah,
that's
I was gonna recommend that.
Let's take a few minutes of break and come back. Ronnie brought
Grab some
us
meat.
pizza.
Sit down and feel it.
Board members, because it's a longer meeting today, they got your pizza.
Thank you.
You're all good.
Don't tell people this all the time. It's the first time in a year we've done anything like this, so grab it while you can.
We will get some.
I was gonna ask you something.
Yeah.
If you wanted help on that, I was able to know.
Appreciate you.
But I did have some recommendations. So I could
Pull the chair out. Just sit back
No, I think she's a physician. Yeah, my dad's family, no. Do you remember the first name?
There was a man.
So you can just stop at these ones.
Sure, it's my brother.
Somebody says they wanna go to Best Buy.
I'm not sure. University of Colorado. University, yes. University of Colorado.
Board regions, I don't know, is there more than one board?
It depends on which. So actually. Right. Different regions.
I didn't read the article real closely. I just
Oh, okay, I know him. He's a really good friend of my mother's.
Maybe it was some other board.
If it's Adams State, probably. It's Adams State College, probably. Look at this now. now I'm curious.
Yeah, yes.
Because my last name Jessica Harris. There are not many people with my last name.
Yeah, that's why I thought it's a pretty good chance it might be.
Yeah, no.
No, just curious.
Yeah, find out who it is and yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I thought you switched around the last time.
I can ask
A couple of interesting things.
No, we had to do that too.
Yeah.
Choose us so much, my God.
I have to.
It's
We're gonna put our logo.
Oh, you been there a while?
Yeah. We opened up, tore down the wall.
Oh, I've been there since then.
I've heard that.
I've got the big guy. Yeah. People said that the drivers have logos so that they don't really know where to go. And sometimes when the navigation system doesn't work properly, they end up going. But for me,
Exactly.
go. Okay.
So just on page of the very first thing that needs to do things that can be
Good to see you.
immediately without having to go into the 24/7 thing. Can we look at that and we'll talk about it today?
Oh, right.
And then extending the walk.
Walk time. Yeah.
Because they're not even getting halfway.
Yeah, that's right.
Regardless of who they are.
Well, that's kind of a hand starts coming out, you're halfway across.
Ron, this is nice.
No, we don't normally.
I know, I heard that, but even so.
But it's still,
I think the right time to,
From the corner. And people get, well, people want to see the countdown. Because they want to know how much time do I have. Once that hand starts flashing, there's something in the engineer's mind, how many times it flashes before the solid and then starts to turn. But you can put it on a timer, and this countdown's really awesome. So that's what we're trying to optimize is installing it out there, so people know how much time do I have.
So anyway.
Oh, okay, do you want me to? Yep. Yep. You're gonna sit here?
I think they just worried about having to release.
Yeah. And then,
I've looked at that and I'm not an engineer. I've looked at it, because I've looked at it, so you've got the light here on the end, and it's got red, the regular light. Yes. But there are other ones in town that have that with a little extension here, that's the arrow. Or you have them with a 4. And I'm going to try to come in.
What might happen, what might happen is with the project, this is just it's just tough enough.
It's works over here. This is nice.
Because they'll all have to go, and they have to be redone, so they don't just come back.
yeah.
We don't have to look at that.
And it was there recently with what she said was a message problem.
Everything has to be.
Yeah.
She said, yeah,
And
all this is they had a big turnout. It was huge. I did a speech.
Hey, that's what
I said it on top of my directions. Well, you know how it goes. These are pretty big pieces.
They are.
But just looking at it, that was just. In our nation know about it. And yeah, is that enough people in the neighborhood know about it? The trouble is most of
I think I was amazed by the turnout.
I thought it was great.
Talk about a small world.
Oh my gosh, is this nice, isn't it? The food is delicious.
Right.
Sure.
So that. She texted me at 1:40 the next night.
No, this morning, 1:40 this morning.
Okay. What's your?
Sodium was out of whack. She was falling down. And
Need it.
it's a big deal when your sodium is out of whack. There's more going on after the big deal. Chemo.
Whatever California. Always. They use Wednesday.
Well. No. Hear what she's gonna say. Doing what?
That's like,
I sat around in September. We just talked to that man, Head John. No, he'll tell you.
No,
I don't think so.
That's
Yeah.
That's like the highest company hosted.
That's a great idea. We had to submit to the city review process or whatever. We just told me what there's people going on. So we can grab some pizza and eat and listen simultaneously. Kaylee from Transportation has a presentation on rides, starting in 1 minute.
I'm getting some food. There you go.
thank you.
That's great.
You're welcome. Oh, I didn't get you now.
Pile that salad on you.
All right. Can you speak of the chewing?
Sure, I'll do my best.
Okay. All right.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaylee. I'm a transportation planner on Phil's team, and I'm one of the project managers for the Rise Longmont, which is the city's new on-demand microtransit service. I believe some of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the service or at least have heard of it. Hopefully, you've seen some of our pamphlets out in the senior center, out right by the front door. But I have some more pamphlets here to give out to folks. But yeah, just going to talk a little bit more about how the service works, and then a little bit more about how it's been performing. So just for a little bit of background as to how this service really came about, as Phil alluded to earlier, in 2023, the city won some grant funds through RTD's partnership program. The city won just over $1 million for a 3-year pilot program. So I will clarify that this is a pilot program, and then after the 3-year period is over, we'll do some analyzation of the metrics, get feedback from the community, and hopefully be able to continue. But we did get that just over $1 million for a 3-year period. As Phil mentioned earlier, we originally had an extra $1 million in federal funding that has kind of put on pause for now, so we'll see what happens with that. And so after we got that funding, we released a request for proposal out into the public, so really asking for service operators to apply to the program. And once we kind of scored those proposals, we contracted with the service provider, which is via Transportation. I do want to clarify, and there has been some confusion, so I apologize, but this service provider is not Via Mobility Services that you all are familiar with. It is a different private
service provider headquartered in New York City. They're really kind of focused on transportation technology. So I know there's been, some confusion between, wait, this is VIA, is it VIA Mobility Services? It's not the VIA Mobility that you see in the big black vans riding around town that you may take to a medical appointment. It is a different company. So we're just really trying to spread the word, and if you could let folks know that it is different VIA, because I think there's some confusion as to who to call or how to call this service. It's a different VIA. So this service, Ride Longmont, officially launched on December 9th. And the estimated total cost over that 3-year program is just over $3 million. So about $1 million per year is the cost estimated. So the purpose of the service, from the city's viewpoint, we really want to increase mobility options and provide our residents and visitors with more options to get around. We heard from folks that the fixed route transit, the RTD transit, is maybe not as reliable, it's not as frequent, it's not as fast as folks would like. Maybe the stops aren't as close to a key destination or close to folks' place of residence that they would like. So this really kind of fills that gap between an Uber and Lyft service and a fixed route transit RTD service. It really is kind of that middleman service. And then we also want to provide service, to folks who cannot drive, don't feel comfortable driving. We want to provide alternatives to driving alone, reduce traffic congestion, and we want to alleviate parking issues in certain locations throughout the city. So this is what the vehicles look like. Hopefully you've seen these vehicles, maybe you've taken a ride in one already, but they are minivans. They've got the Ride Longmont logo on there. And then this particular van has a bicycle rack on the back. So getting into how to book a ride. So there's 2 main ways that you can book a ride through this service. The first way is booking a ride through the smartphone application. That application is just called Ride Longmont. So whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you would just go to your app store, type in Ride Longmont, and be able to download the app that way. If you don't have a smartphone or you're not comfortable with the App Store, you can call the booking center at this number, 970-538-9097, and you can book a ride over the phone that way. I do want to highlight that multiple languages are supported through the booking center and the app. So if English is not your first language, or folks where English is not their first language, we are able to support them booking a ride in a different language. You would just indicate that when you call the phone number, or in the application you would indicate your language. How you book a ride through the app is that you would just simply enter your pickup location. On the application it'll say, where are you? Confirm that this is where you're at. You would hit confirm, and then it'll ask you, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be dropped off? And you would confirm that. And then it'll give you an estimated wait time for your driver. The average estimated wait time that we've been seeing is around 15 minutes, and that's really our goal, is 15-minute wait time. I will say that at peak commute hours, so those really 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and that kind of 4 to 5:30 p.m., you might have to wait a little bit longer just because there's higher demand at those times, people going to and from work. But we're really aiming for that 15-minute wait time. And then if you booked that ride through the application, you can kind of trace where your driver is going, and it'll kind of count down, okay, 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes, and then it'll tell you, please walk or roll to this intersection and meet your driver. So just want to emphasize that as of right now, it's not a door-to-door service, so the vehicle is not able to pick you up right in front of your house or your place of residence. And that's just to be really time efficient. We want to make sure that we're getting folks to where they need to be in a timely manner. So it's just a really short distance where you may need to walk or roll. With that being said, if you all notice that there are certain pickup locations that seem, maybe uncomfortable to walk to, we've had folks that say, I tried to go here and I had to cross a really busy street and I didn't feel safe, or I heard from my neighbor that they have to walk, a pretty long distance for their physical ability. You can definitely feel free to reach out to me, and I will do my best to rectify those issues. We obviously want everyone to be able to take this service. We just can't have it, pick up everyone in front of their doors. But if there's something I can do to help make a pickup spot closer or more comfortable, definitely reach out to me and I will do my best to do that.
And drop off stuff.
And same with drop-off spots. Yeah, sorry, pick up and drop off, same thing there. And then we do have wheelchair accessible vans. We have 2 vans that are wheelchair accessible. So if you need a wheelchair accessible van, you would just indicate that in the application. And then if you need a van with a bike rack, you would indicate that as well. If you call the booking center, how that works is you would tell them your pickup and drop off locations, and then they would then send your phone number a text message with the estimated wait time and then the location of your pickup and drop off. So you do, as of right now, need the ability to text. If you aren't able to text, then I believe the booking agent will just verbally tell you, okay, the estimated wait time, and please meet at these intersections of the streets.
So I have a question about your wheelchair vans. Because what I've heard from people when they have indicated that they need, because they're in a wheelchair, that they're being told that they need to call in advance, like a day or so in advance for an appointment. Is that correct?
That's interesting. I have not heard that. And that is not something our operator has told us that needs to happen. But if that's what they're being told, then we can certainly follow up with the operator and ask why that is. Because that's not an issue that should be happening.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for letting me know, and I will follow up with them because it's supposed to be an on-demand service. You're supposed to be able to get a ride as you call it. So that is an issue that should not be happening.
I think the only issue that might be happening is that it's getting somewhat, this has been such a popular service.
Yeah.
Everybody who's used it can kind of attest to that. So there may be issues now with too many wheelchairs. I mean, they only have 2 vehicles that can handle wheelchairs. They're really the only ones on the road, I think, during the day. And the other one's kind of left in reserve. So they might be having problems dealing with that just now, but we'll work with them.
Because, what we're telling people is the same thing. You call and it's 15 or 20 minutes, and then we're hearing back that isn't quite the thing for the wheelchair. So if you could just kind of clarify that.
Yeah, no, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that feedback. Yeah.
And then, do you flag or mark seniors for the $1 rate versus the $2 rate? Because there was an oops with one of the people I know where they would bill $2 and they go, I thought it was $1.
Yeah, so it is $1 for students, seniors, and people with disabilities. You just indicate that either over the phone when you call them, you would say I'm a senior, so I have the $1 discount, or there's a place in the app when you book your ride to indicate if you're a senior. It might be a little bit difficult to find. I could see where there might be confusion of, I'm not sure where to indicate I'm a senior. So I'm happy to kind of help show folks on the app like where you would indicate that.
I think it's under special settings, isn't it?
Special settings.
With the wheelchair and whether you're a senior, I think you can designate both of those things.
Yeah, is that on the sidebar?
It's an accessibility piece on the app.
Yeah.
So you just click the button to say, yes, I need a wheelchair accessible,
But
or that I'm a senior.
is that Phil, is that on the sidebar? Like you have to click the 3
Yeah,
lines?
there's a senior button that you can just push, and it's on your honor. So be honest about that. But once you change your settings, it'll keep it as a senior for as long as you use it. So.
Okay.
Okay, she's getting younger.
Yeah.
You've done 18 if you want.
Okay, I'm confused about something you're saying. When I first, one night I called to see if, I didn't know if my area was in the pickup area. And I gave her my address, and I live on Quail Road, which is by the rec center. She said my closest would be out at Del Camino. Now, that just didn't make sense to me at all. And I thought, I don't think this lady knows what she's talking about, so I hung up. And then last week I called, I found the pamphlet laying on the cupboard there, and I thought, I'm gonna call again. Got a hold of a very nice lady, and so I asked, where I would have to go to pick it up. And she said, are you over 65 and a senior citizen? And I said, yes, I am. And she said, well, then they will come to your door and pick you up.
They have said that they'll take care of it. Also, if you have a disability, they'll likely come to your door as well. So by clicking those two, one of those two or both of them, you may get that special
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I did not
I've
hear
just
that
heard
from
that
them,
it's
so,
kind
okay.
of, that's kind of what it is, but
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
You can request that. Yeah.
So it's not guaranteed with every ride, but they'll do their best?
Right.
yes.
And maybe dropping off the same thing if they see that you're, have a mobility issue, then they may make a better effort to drop you off right where you're at.
Yes.
instead of-
Yeah, and a lot of the times, and I think Phil can attest to this too, is that on those periods of where it's not busy and the drivers have extra time or they're not on their way to pick up another passenger, I'm sure they would do their best to drop you off as close as they can to your destination, so.
So it's under account. If you go under your account, you then have accessibility option, and if you go under accessibility,
65 over if you want.
then you can do 65 or over, you can do wheelchair accessibility.
That means you'll get a van every time, so, yeah, we do that accessible van every time.
And then you can just do rider with disabilities, so you don't need a wheelchair, but you're a rider with a disability. So you can press any of those options, and it'll stay that way,
Yeah, it
right?
stays that way, yep.
And is the mobility hub one of the locations?
Yes.
Can you explain how?
Yeah, definitely, and I actually have a couple of slides showing locations, so I will just kind of breeze through that. So I'll get to your question in just a few minutes. So, right now, it is an on-demand service, so yeah, we have been telling folks that, call it within 15, 20, 30 minutes. From my understanding, we do not have the ability to schedule ahead. It sounds like maybe some of the booking agents have said otherwise, so we will double check on that with the operator. But just want to point out here that also weather may affect wait times. We may have to delay the service. A few weeks ago when we had that crazy kind of winter weather storm and got a lot of snow, the service was delayed until the roads were safe for folks to drive. So just want to put that out there that, weather may affect kind of the hours of operation or wait times. So here are the general hours of operation, Monday through Saturday, that's 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have had folks ask, if they're in the vehicle at 8 p.m. and it's 8:01, are they going to kick me out? And the answer is no. The driver will get you to your destination, your drop-off location, even if it's just a few minutes after 8 p.m. To your question about the mobility hub, we are asking the operator to pick up folks right before 8 p.m. from the mobility hub so that, you can take busing or you can take those services to the mobility hub and be able to get back to Longmont even if it's like 7:55. So we are asking the operator to honor that. So hopefully, if you have an issue with that, let us know, but that should be running. And then Sundays and holidays are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then as we discussed, the rides generally are $2, but for students, seniors, and folks with disabilities, they're $1. And currently, payment has to be on some sort of debit card, a credit card, and maybe a prepaid card. We are currently not accepting cash. We are in the works. I'm trying to talk to the operator on how we can figure out maybe an alternative payment method for folks who don't have a credit or debit card, but we'll see what comes of that. And then the general rule of thumb is you do not need to tip the driver. The drivers do not accept tips. So the rides are public, which means your driver might pick up other people along your route. If it's, again, not a very busy time, you might be the only person in the vehicle. If it's a super busy time, you might have other folks along the route. We already covered kind of pickup locations. Service animals are welcome without restrictions, so you're able to bring your service animal. And you can bring a non-service animal, it just has to be in an airline-approved container. And then the rule of thumb is that riders have to be 13 years or older to ride alone. But if you have younger riders, they can be accompanied by a guardian. So we have, heard of folks riding along with their kiddos to school, which has been great to hear. So to get to the question of, where does the service go? It's really anywhere within the city of Longmont's planning area. So that's encompassing pretty much anywhere within the city. I think, give or take, there's a little piece out northeast that's not in the planning area.
We should have everything, we should have everything that's within the city limits is included, and then we go beyond into the unincorporated county areas, in Weld County and in Boulder County, because we don't want to have, because you live in an enclave that wasn't annexed, we don't want you to have to be excluded from the service. We're just including everybody, just to make it, we don't wanna hopscotch around, so.
So that's really, I mean, anywhere within the city, that's grocery stores, medical appointments, bus stops, the Firestone Longmont Mobility Hub, schools, library, rec centers, shopping centers. So anywhere that you might want to go or need to go, whether that's, you know, a friend's house or shopping center, you can go to with this service, just within Longmont. So besides the Firestone Longmont Mobility Hub, you know, you can't take the service into Boulder, you can't take the service into Broomfield, but you can go City of Longmont and then that mobility hub.
So Ride Longmont will actually take you out to the hub on 66 and 119?
119, I-25.
For I-25,
Yeah, the new one that CDOT just built.
So that,
So
right,
we have bus
okay.
lane service. It's a
Because that was
30-minute
originally not.
30-minute trip to Denver. Yeah.
But the Ride Longmont will take you to that.
Yeah. And Kaylee alluded to this earlier, but the last bus of the day from Denver comes and drops you at about 8 o'clock at that site. So if you call it 8:15, they'll still pick you up. You have a little service agreement to expand it. So if you do take the bus up there, you won't be stranded if you take the bus down back.
Okay, because originally it was not that, right?
We did a lot. We had to pull.
Yeah.
We went through a lot of things for that. Yeah, that's why the service was delayed. It was supposed to start in like October, but to get that, we had to do some deals with RTD because that's not in the RTD district. So they don't want to spend their money outside the district. So we did some deals. We worked the contract so that it was 2 separate contracts.
Okay.
So this is just a screenshot of the map on the website of, you know, example locations of where you can go. I apologize, it's pretty blurry right now, but it does show, that Firestone Longmont Mobility Hub out there as number 12 on the screen. So this is online, and it's also in these informational pamphlets if folks, you know, want to look at a physical map to see where they can go. But like I said, it's really anywhere within the city. So a little bit more about operations and management. We have 6 total vehicles in our fleet. 4 of those vehicles are hybrid. 2 of them are wheelchair accessible vehicles, and those 2 are not hybrid just because of the mechanics of the wheelchair. They need to be fully gas, but the 4 that are hybrid have bicycle racks on them. And then kind of as I think Phil alluded to, not all 6 vehicles are on the road at one time. I believe we're seeing about 4 to 5 vehicles on the road at each time. We're really kind of leaving that 6th vehicle as an emergency vehicle. If something were to happen to one of the other vehicles, we could bring in that 6th vehicle to replace it.
How many wheelchairs can you get on one of those vehicles?
I believe it's 1 wheelchair, 1 or 2.
I think you can do 2.
2.
And they have to be strapped.
And so, as we were talking about with the TMP, this kind of just adds to the layers of service. So it's not replacing, at this moment, it's not replacing RTD's Access-A-Ride or Flex-Ride or Via Mobility services. All those services will be working kind of at the same time. So this is just another option that people can take. So we did a lot of community outreach to make sure that we spread the word about this service as it was launching in December. This is just kind of a list of organizations that we reached out to distribute the posters, the pamphlets, and some digital information. So we really wanted to focus on the folks that the service would help out, those vulnerable users. So we really, you know, worked with the Senior Center, you all, the Youth Center, the St. Vrain Community Hub, reached out to several food pantries, the library, the rec center, also reached out to some Boulder County organizations, including Mobility for All and the Rainbow Elders, and then of course reaching out to St. Vrain Valley School District to make sure we spread the word to families with young children, other senior living facilities. I know Phil went and talked to a few of the senior living facilities, and then working with our center and Longmont Housing Authority to really spread the word.
So you know museum spelled wrong,
right?
Sorry.
Under community hub. Just a correction.
A few typos.
Thank
you. So we also had some social media campaigns too. So maybe some folks, you might have seen this on Facebook. These are just some screenshots of what the ads looked like. A lot of folks liked the getting to class shouldn't be a test one. We also have one that said brag to school appointments and shopping. And then we also had these in Spanish as well. I just don't have a copy of the Spanish ads on this PowerPoint, but they're just the same ads translated in Spanish as well. So for the first month of service, that was December 9th to January 9th, it was free for all users. So we wanted people to get out there, test it out. We really wanted people to get excited about it, so it was free. And this is kind of what that looked like. So we had over 4,000 rides. We had 4,339 total completed rides. And that equated to 10,646 miles taken by riders. We did hit that average of 15 minutes or below wait time. So we had 14-minute average wait time for the first month. The average ride time, so the average time someone was in the vehicle for was 12.6 minutes. And the average distance that someone rode for was 3.6 miles. In terms of the smartphone applications, we had 2,461 accounts created. So that's the number of folks that signed up, downloaded the app, put in all their information. And then we had 208 riders complete 5 or more bookings. So I really like this statistic because I think it shows how many folks liked the service enough to keep coming back, at least 5 times. They felt like it was, useful to them. It was efficient. They used it a lot. So really great to see that we had over 200 people use that 5 or more times. And then the average rating was 4.9 out of 5 stars. So if you book through the app, it will ask you at the end of your ride to rate the ride. And the average rating was 4.9. So we're really, really glad to see that folks are liking this service and using it.
David, any idea how it's tracking the second month, January, February yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've just hit over 8,000 rides. So again, that's kind of averaging that 4,000 rides per month. And we're averaging anywhere from about 150 to 200 rides per day.
Wow, that's good. We did set a record.
That's really something. Yeah.
So we had our highest ridership after the free rides were over. That's when we actually hit our highest ridership. Was it 2 Thursdays ago?
Yeah.
So in the paid period.
How is that comparing to other cities of this size that are doing it? Any idea?
We can just tell you, Kayla and I have heard from the operator that they're very excited about the numbers they're seeing in this city. They launched a similar one in Sacramento at almost the exact same time. In fact, there's some confusion on the phone numbers, so that was fun. But we are outpacing them, I think, threefold. So they've got other transit teams. So there's a lot going on. But we knew this community would be hungry for this service. And this is exactly what we needed.
So do you chance more vehicles when we
I think they're going to have to we're going to have to talk to them about how, what are they seeing? They'll need a couple more months under their belt before they really think about this. Because they're just data. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then if they buy new vehicles, that's going to come on us. So we'd have to come up with extra dollars for that.
So looking ahead to the future, and great segue because we were kind of talking about the future, but we as city staff will continue to monitor that service data that I just put up there. How are we performing month over month and day to day? We will work with the operator on any issues that arise. So thank you to all of you for giving me some feedback here today and letting me know some issues that have been happening. That's really helpful. And then we also definitely will continue to engage with the community, continue to spread the word, continue to do that through social media or through the press. I forgot to mention on the first day of launch, we did have some local news and media come out, and it was on a couple of those channels and online. So it was great to see we had the mayor and some council members come out for that and have that press launch. So we will continue to engage with that. And then, as Phil just said, we'll hopefully be able to pursue some additional funding opportunities that might allow for expansion, maybe more vehicles. We've definitely heard from folks that they would like the service to go past 8 p.m. So hopefully, we can, if we are able to get additional funding, we can make that happen. Just comes down to funding. So we will definitely keep our eye on funding opportunities to hopefully expand that service.
I think we're also looking for public-private partnerships. A lot of the businesses are benefiting from the service, And especially, you know, entertainment establishments in the evenings would benefit, so how do we incorporate those kind of partnerships in the future?
How do you do that? How do you go out to the
So
city?
we work with our chamber and our Longmont Economic Development Partnership. So there's a couple different venues to start talking to the businesses and saying, hey, can we get some, you know, this has been really popular, it's working really well, we can make it better. But we need some contributions from the local, because as we talked about, the federal dollars are pretty much gone. We're not gonna count on those for the next couple of years here, so we're gonna have to go after more RTD funding, and that's a possibility, that's a real thing that we could do. Or state funding is another option. With the local, I think we're gonna have to be the ones that, especially at the private development level, get some of those private partners out there.
I understand that the first month, the LDDA paid for night service. How did that come out? What did you find from that?
Yeah, that's a good question for Kimberly, because I don't know that I've seen that exact data off the top of my head. I think it went really well from what we've heard. Folks really enjoyed being able to go out to dinner, go downtown, and then, you know, maybe it's 8:30, 9 p.m. and get a ride back, but if I'm feeling it, I'll do that.
They said it was successful. They said it was successful, but we haven't got the numbers back
Yeah.
yet. So we did see that, and then she also bought up service for this recent walkabout, the winter walkabout.
She told me.
So she did that as well, and she said she had some decent ridership, and people used it, so that was good to hear as well.
She said especially
It was more
coming
of a
up the
shuttle at
hill.
that point. No, it was more of a shuttle
Yeah.
service that she bought.
Up
But using
she
these
had
vans,
fun.
that's a great thing about this. It's a very flexible service. If she does need those kind of services, and we're thinking with the climbing collective is going to have their ice event, can we get some services? But it does take away from the current services, because I know Eric and I were on the same shuttle one day, and it wasn't really great because they didn't really drop you off as close as I thought they should have. But
I use it 4 times yesterday.
oh
my.
that's great. So you're one of those 208.
I am one of those.
I was gonna ask, how many were you in that little? So.
I was 20 of them.
Also, I live at Village on Main, and I had some feedback, but I think it's all been taken care of. They don't have an iPhone or don't have a credit card, they wanted to know what to do. How do you designate you're a senior, and how do you designate you're in a wheelchair? So that's pretty much it, what I was gonna ask. I do wanna say that somebody mentioned that their child was able to take, their son was able to take it to a doctor's appointment, which was so helpful to them because they would have had to get out of work to go and provide transportation to and from, and because he was able to take this van, then it just helps kids even, you know, old enough to know what they're doing, but still it's very beneficial to a lot of different people, so. I was glad to hear that kind of feedback came back, because I like the idea that other people have ways of getting around that won't take parents out of work and things like that.
So yeah, that's great. No, thank you for sharing that feedback.
Did you say you had a punch card for the trips?
So, no, I'm currently working with the operator right now to explore what an alternative might look like if you don't have a credit card or a debit card, but we have not settled on what that alternative will be or look like. But they did mention like a prepaid, you might be able to give $10.
Well, that's what I meant,
Yeah.
punch card prepaid.
Yeah, so stay tuned on that. Definitely Phil and I will work with the operator to see, you know, what are our options, what makes sense, and then what can we do to help out folks, because we have heard feedback, you know, if I don't have a credit or debit card, how do I pay? So.
I can see high school kids taking
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that, you know.
And again, it doesn't take parents out of work.
Right.
You know, they can go and do
Yeah,
what they
that
need
would
to
be
do.
such a great help. How many fit into those vans?
So there's 7
6.
passenger vehicles?
7?
Yeah. Is that including the driver?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
just including the driver, so 6
I
passengers.
mean, some of these high school kids, you know, be perfect.
And you know what, too, I was giving feedback to my residents or the people I live with, and they were saying, well, can I go to the hairdresser? And I was like, yeah. He said, so it's not just medical, it's not just something official? I said, no, you can get a ride anywhere you want to go. And they were pretty excited to hear that because they thought that they had to kind of budget if they wanted to go to the hairdresser or shopping or something. And I said, no, it's anything you want to do. So.
Great. Any other questions, comments? So it looks really successful. Thank you all for put together.
Yeah, and I will just point out, so there's this link right here for the official website. So if you go on here, it does have a lot of really great information. It has the map that I pointed out, service hours, and then if you scroll down, I think a lot of people, unfortunately, it's at the bottom, but if you scroll down, there's frequently asked questions. So these are all really good resources and questions that we've had folks ask. And then, of course, like I mentioned, if something comes up, definitely please feel free to reach out to me. My email is right here. And then if you would like a copy of the informational pamphlets, I have these as well. So,
you know what I wanted to mention too? When I went to book my first trip, I really liked it because it said your first trip available is 7 minutes, but your next trip is 23. So I was like, great, because then I didn't have to rush to grab the first one. I had time to prepare for it, because going on the first time, I had no idea what to expect. So when I saw 7 minutes, I was like, oh darn, I'm not ready. But the 23-minute one is the one I chose, and that gave me time to get ready for it. It worked out perfect.
good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear there's options of kind of you can pick, choose.
So, but if I needed one fast, I could have definitely gotten one in 7 minutes. So it worked out.
Great. Any other questions?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was good. Thank you both.
Well done. You ready? Management report. Ronnie's up. Thank you all. Rose, thank you very much. Good seeing you all. Yes.
Is it ready to go?
Or he's gonna be in it.
Oh, I can hear it plugged in.
Make some pizza if you want. It was.
I never got blood.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Just want to start off by sharing the work we've done towards the Elder Exchange. We are now in a position to see it happen. So in March, we are going to host 20 of our Northern Arapaho friends coming down for the Denver March Powwow, March 19th through 22nd. And in turn, we are going to send 20 of our seniors up there to the Wind River Reservation in July. So very quick turnaround. Our Northern Arapaho friends reached out and said, hey, this work we've been doing, let's start in March. And so, excuse me. And so we've been working to kind of coordinate some of those details, figure out how to make this happen with such a quick turnaround. And so what we did is I needed 20 participants. And so where I started was with those who registered for our indigenous programs. So our Native American Heritage Month celebration, our Sister Cities Little by Little CEP that we did in the gymnasium, and those who registered for the Denver March Powwow last March, and pulled up, I think it was a little over 200 participants, emails. Quickly crafted an application with support of Sister Cities, the same format they use for the youth exchanges, and sent that out to those participants and said, hey, quick turnaround, we want to start with this group. You've registered in our programs around Native culture and history, and we want to extend this invitation to you. So I've had over, I think it was around 15 applicants. Going through those applications, I did reserve some spaces for our a few of our board members and a few of our advisory board members and our friends board members. And the goal of that is just to continue to advocate for this work, but experience in real time what it is our participants, our senior participants would experience during this exchange, and be able to help continue to support it, advocate for the the opportunities to learn between both communities, and with excuse me, I don't know what's going on. And so with that, you know, I'm going through applications right now to see how many spaces we have available for our advisory board and our friends board. And from there, I'll work with John to reach out to all of you to see how we identify who wants to participate. One requirement I do have for our guests, and it'd be the same for our advisory and friends board, would need to be available for our February training that we're going to be hosting here at the Senior Center. All dates for the for the March exchange, and all dates for the July exchange. And the reason for that being is so that we're building intentional relationships and we're not interchanging our participants as we do this work. And so I am meeting with Northern Rapids leadership on Tuesday of next week to identify what those July dates are going to be. And your hand was up. Yep. Okay.
That was the July date question.
The July date. So I don't have those ones right now. What I do have is the dates that they're coming down. And it's going to be a combination of things in March 19th. We're looking at doing a welcome home dinner for our Native friends. We are looking at hosting that at the museum. Thursday would be a trip to the Colorado History Museum to see the Sand Creek Massacre exhibits. This will be their first time seeing that. And the fact that they want to bring our seniors in for that experience for them is incredible. There's going to be a lot of emotion during that visit to the museum, and you know, the fact that they invited us to be a part of that is incredible. That's Thursday. Friday would be more on-site stuff here at the Senior Center. We're looking at identifying arts and crafts that we can have an opportunity just to be together, be at the same table, working on something, getting to know each other, and again, building those relationships. And then Saturday would be a visit to the Denver March powwow. And so it's gonna be some long days, and you know, we're ironing out all of those details of what it's gonna look like. Working with them, it is going to be when they come down to visit us in March. We're 100% responsible for cost and planning of that, and when we go up, they're going to cover cost and planning for our seniors and on our participants. And so with that, looking at some of those details, we were talking through it, what our meal's going to look like. I really want to invite our advisory board and our friends board to host one of these meals, a dinner, specifically host a dinner, meaning working friends board and then advisory board working with their own boards collectively to say, hey, what is it we want to prepare? What do we want to contribute? And what do we want to share with them for that meal? So I want to put that out on your radar as well. Hopefully this board is willing to collectively pull things together to create a spread. It could be a themed thing, or it could be like a potluck, whatever you want. I'll let you all decide. But I just think it's a really good opportunity for us to say, hey, you're here, welcome. And as we're doing this work, we've been doing a lot of work since I've been here for 2 years to make this happen. We want to welcome you here. So, mentioned a training. We're doing a workshop here February 13th. It is a workshop towards right relationship with Native peoples. Really good workshop I did that was hosted here in the city back in November, I believe it was. So I brought that group in to host it again, and those participants that have been identified from each board, I'll pull in for the workshop training as well. Very excited to see this happen. This is huge, groundbreaking. I mean, Ray Ramirez, who was on the Friends board, and Carmen Ramirez, who was with the city for how many years? 20 plus.
Yeah,
20 plus years.
23.
Has done a lot of work to not only build this relationship with Northern Arapahoe, but get us in that direction for an elder exchange. And to see it actually come to life and in action now is really incredible. So it's never been done before. So what we're doing is it's a history, right? In the making. Any questions on that, on the other?
So what do you need from us?
So what I need from us is collectively I want you all to work together, and I can help facilitate and organize that if we need to, but I'll work with John on that one to identify a meal, and then once I know what meal it is, what night, what day, I'll let you know, but to organize a meal, and it'll be here, we'll have it here at the senior center, we'll reserve one in the room, reserve one in the cafeteria. We'll work collectively to identify a theme, meaning if it's taco bar, so we're not all showing up with cheese. But, or it could be, again, like a potluck. It's really up to you all. So we'll need that. Once I know how many spaces I have for Friends and Advisory, and I should know that in the next day or so. So hang tight there. I'll work with John to identify schedules. And if you're already out because of your schedule, the March 19th through 22, I know that's a quick turnaround. This happened very fast. It wasn't. I knew about this last July. I knew about this maybe 3 weeks ago. So very quick turnaround. We always said we're working on native time, right? And so this is what we're doing. And so if you are interested or able to participate, let John know. And then once I know what that total is, John will work with you all to identify who would be representing the advisory board in this work. And I'll do the same with the Friends board as well.
And you'll know about the July date pretty quick?
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Next Tuesday for sure. Yeah, because I met yesterday, and Lee and Brandon had to go back to their business council to say, hey, we have 2 options, and I don't know what those options were. It was option 1 aligns with the youth exchange, meaning Longmont Youth and Northern Arapahoe, who are down here to visit, are going now back up to Wind River Reservation. Do they want to host both exchanges at the same time, not doing the same activities? There's the youth side and the senior side, but hosting both at the reservation at the same time based off of their schedules? Or is it we need to stagger them because that's too big of a lift to have both groups at the same time? So their leadership will decide to make that decision and let me know next Tuesday when we meet again. Exciting stuff. You have more questions there? Okay. So our Friends annual board meeting took place last week. Was it last week? All my weeks are starting to blur. She is. I can't believe we're already in February. I gotta say that out loud. What happened to January? And so the Friends annual board meeting went very well. We had a handful of our advisory board representatives in attendance. We had our budget approved for the year. Very excited. What we've done is built in this work, as mentioned, we have to cover the cost of everything, all the expenses when we host our Northern Arapahoe friends. And so working with Ray Ramirez at the time helped us build that into the Friends budget to support this work. And so again, our budget was approved, so we'll be able to use those funds to help support that exchange. Yeah, anything, I'll let you all add. Then you were in attendance. Is there anything you all want to add for the Friends board meeting?
I've got the report.
Oh, you got it on your report. You got it. Okay. Okay. Working right now on our 2024 data and accomplishments. We will have that at the next advisory board meeting. Working with Dave and John to create the advisory board accomplishments for 2024 and what the goals are for 2025. And we will have the full report for you at the next.
Has Bradley completed her part of it?
Yep, we're ready to go. So we're just, once we have those pieces, we'll have the whole report and be ready to go. Yeah. All right, staffing updates. I'll bring Hector in here in a moment. We have interviewed, hired, and we have our new full-time bilingual office assistant, Hector Martinez. He joined us last week, and he came back again today. I joked with him. He's like, is there something I should be aware of? Like, so should I not? What does that mean? I'm like, we're just joking with you. He's enjoying things. He's jumped in. He's jumped in right away, and he's taking time to really get to know our guests, and he's doing fantastic. And he's coming around the corner here in a second. And then I have interviewed for our 2 part-time positions, one in the morning, one in the evening, this past week, and made 2 offers. And so they both accepted, and they are now working with HR to get up for the whole onboarding process. So hopefully next week or so we'll be fully staffed at 100% again. So this is Hector. Hector, this is our advisory board.
Hello.
I just want them to meet you, and if you want to say a little bit about yourself and your Longmont history.
Yeah. Good afternoon, morning, something like that, right? I'm Hector. I grew up here in Longmont, originally from Mexico. My first time working at a senior center. So this is something new for me, something different, but I like it. I'm ex-military, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not an interesting person.
Yeah.
So yes.
So in this short period of time, what's been your favorite thing?
I mean, meeting new people. Each person has different character, which I like. It just makes me laugh. And then, you know, the older, the ladies, they kind of, what's that word? They make me blush, okay? They call me gentle. So I think that's what I like.
They're flirting with you. That's a good sign.
I like that. So that's what I like, you know. So you want to give me compliments, and I'm not gonna stop you. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Does anyone have any questions for Hector?
No, welcome.
Welcome, Hector.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
He's doing fantastic. Coffee with Leadership reminders. Thank you everybody for filling in those remaining months. So we have February, March, April, May, and June listed here, just as a reminder. And I don't know, I should have put the time on here at the top of my head. 9 to 10. 9 to 10. 9 to 10. Every single one of those 9 to 10 in the same room B, in the first door when you walk to the right when you walk in the front doors.
And so, Ronnie, they rescheduled the city council retreat to the 28th when I was signed up, so I sent Amy a message. I won't be able to do that.
That's okay. Don't take this. That's fine.
You'll be on vacation.
I will be on vacation. I'm sorry, I won't cancel that.
So we'll need to
We'll
figure
figure
something
that
else
out.
out. Yeah.
I thought working here was a vacation.
Someone say.
Someone.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what we have, and then we're working on our Go catalog right now for our summer Go, May through August, month of February. So our deadline was for all new programs going into February. In February, we're pulling all of that together and designing everything to get it to our printers for March, have them review everything, and have it 100% ready, physically ready in April. And so a lot of good ideas from our team, like always, doing a fantastic job of creating new innovative programs and then new trips, and always collecting feedback from our participants on what it is they want to see for programs and trips. So we're hoping that we get these 2 new vehicles from our friends towards the summer for this Go cycle, we're hoping. But working with our city fleet department right now to identify those vehicles who have been purchased. So everything's a process.
Are they going to be electric or hybrid?
They are not that I'm aware of.
Well, she said that handicapped can't be, right? Didn't the woman from Ride Longmont say if it was for handicapped accessibility, it couldn't be hybrid?
They're bigger, but yeah, I don't think we have many big, I don't know that we have any big hybrid.
Yeah.
We have Priuses that are staff pool cars, but I'm guessing that it would be.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Is that a matter of necessity or policy or what?
It's more difficult to source those.
I think it's more difficult to source, and there's already a shortage. It's already hard to get our hands on vehicles anyway, so I think it,
No.
I mean, you do see it.
Yeah, I've seen them.
That's it.
That's it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to take a few minutes to go through the draft presentation of the city manager for the March 5th meeting. I'd like your input on changes as, whatever you can put together for the city manager. I will say the next slide is missing, because I got a little eager on what Christine helped me get all the work on this. But the next slide was to talk about the transportation housing, our past focus. And it didn't quite go through on my scanner, so the next slide would be asking about that. Just to recap what we've done with housing and transportation. And then move into the presentation specifically for the food insecurity. So that's slide number 2. You know, everything you see coming forward is stuff we've talked about since we started doing this in March. We got a lot of information, a lot of interviews, whatever. I kept saying to everybody, what's the ask? What do we want to ask the city council? And what I finally came up with is the city put this out as a council priorities and said their core service, the very bottom, is, I can't hardly read that, but
Housing is first. Is it?
It's not the basic needs.
core services?
Core services, right.
Yeah.
So the very last sentence, like all foundations, there are efforts, what does it say?
Often out of sight, but essential.
Often out of sight, but essential. The way to look at that is, look at Maslow's pyramid of needs. The very first thing on the bottom foundation is food. And yet, if you look across, and the city has a lot of discussion around food issues, but they're kind of pushed off to the side. So the presentation is to get support to make the food insecurity or food access a core service called out specifically for the city to apply direction to and support for. Not asking for money, just asking for initially for there to be a recognition that this is in fact, should be, we think, a core part of the core service write-in. Again, there's the needs. We know that when you talk to tell me the 4 basic needs, food always comes up as 1 or 2. So how to be able to present that, to let the city see that. We've seen this before. Over 1 million pounds of food is distributed by community food share each month. The majority of that goes to Longmont, and that does not include what the individual groups raise on their own. For example, the Hour Center distributes about 100,000 pounds of food a month. So that comes from community food share. Same with the Round Pantry, same with Longmont Food Rescue. So the 1 million pounds a month is a significant part, but it's not all the food that comes to this city. Again, trying to get the city council to recognize, even though it's not talked about, and there's a stigma, we'll talk about that in a second, a stigma around asking for help around food. So that's an issue with again, it becomes a core value, it becomes less stigmatized. What does it matter about seniors? Well, what matters is at this point, we're people over 65 plus, 17% of the population. There's a thing of the aging well that talked about, well, we think that boomers are a bigger deal, but the following generations will not be. The 2024, the new 2024 Aging Well update says that's not true. It says that millennials and Gen X will certainly push that way and continue to do so. In fact, in 2016, when the city did Envision Longmont, page 13, top of the page, it says seniors are going to be the single biggest demographic in this city in the next 20 to 30 years. So there's lots of talk about it in this, but we want action. We want the need for this to be a core value. That total representation of people 55 to 65 plus is over 30% of the population currently, as of June of 2024. Now the statistical data comes from mostly from Aging Well. 36% have at least a minor problem meeting daily expenses. We got that from transportation. We also got that from the earlier presentation that the cost from the cost of food, cost of housing is going up. 44% feel they have fair to poor availability of affordable, quality food. That's a key exhibit of what food insecurity is. Food insecurity is not just a matter of we don't have enough food. Food insecurity also addresses the nutritional value of food and the fact that you might have enough food coming in, but it doesn't sustain health. And that's a big part of it. When I presented this last one to everybody a few months ago, the cost of meals in Boulder County are up 28% since 2018, 18% higher than the rest of Colorado. I think there was a collective gasp when we showed that 37% higher than the average meal cost anywhere in the country here in Boulder County. And I think people here recognize that and have experienced that. What difference does it make? Well, we talked about this before. Older adults who are marginally food insecure will present at 14 years older in terms of daily living limitations. That means someone who was 70, 69, 65 years old will present as someone who was almost 80. Exhibiting the qualities of health issues of an 80-year-old. Asthma, heart. What does that do to the services in this city? It puts a demand on it. 9.2% of seniors in Colorado are food insecure. That number is low, based on what I heard from Community Food Share. They're saying that they don't have a good enough statistic, but they believe it to be higher. I don't like this slide. It's kind of still here, but it basically defines food insecurity. It talks about at the bottom, food and nutritional insecurity is an individual, household, or neighborhood level economic and social condition. It's boring, but basically what it's going to talk about here, what the slide's going to talk about, is defining what food insecurity does to a person's health. Lonnie?
Could you just speak up?
Oh.
Could you talk louder?
Oh, I can. I can talk a lot louder. Anyway, so I said I don't like this. It doesn't describe food insecurity well enough. I have another slide coming. But it also supports the next slide, which is what we began to find in doing this process, is that there are a lot exists within the Human Services Department. Christina, Hilda, Gilberto, Lonnie, it's already talking about some aspect of food insecurity. And the most, let's ask Christina just to chat about this for a second, but the very most important part of this is the bottom in black. Seniors living with children are more susceptible to food insecurity due to financial strains, higher healthcare costs, specific nutritional needs, collectively heightening their vulnerabilities. So if seniors are presenting at 14 years older for food insecurity, what does it do to children? And so we're beginning to see a way to tie what we're asking the council back to the Human Services Department as a whole.
So how I have this model kind of color coded, the brownish is actually I think it is a little like a light red in the original PowerPoint, but basically what that shows is that we are at a stopping point, right, with really taking an analysis, a higher level approach to looking at this issue throughout our department. So in our department, there's essentially four areas: children, youth, and families, senior, housing and community wellness, and then our human services agency funding. And so as we look at those areas and tie that back to food security and access, we're seeing that run throughout all of those four areas. The yellow boxes represent things that we can currently, start to look at, start to work on. We have our human services funding. That's the area that Eliberto oversees. And we fund about 10 different agencies that fund, that provide food access, food security services. But we're still seeing that within our department, there's issues. There's things that we need to work on. there's a lack of food access in our suites program. We know that our kids are after school programs. Our kids are hungry. We know that their families are hungry over the weekend. John has done a great job of presenting what we're seeing in our senior community. And so then the green, if we kind of move a little further to the right, there's several things that are kind of happening that are in this yellow range. Eliberto and I are going to be presenting to City Council in March because what we know is that we need to significantly revamp our human services funding approach. The need is far outpacing the resources that we have, so we need to ask Council for some critical direction on how to move forward. An analogy that Eliberto uses that I think really exemplifies this is that do we go a mile wide and an inch deep with our funding, or an inch wide and a mile deep? And really take a look at the things that we can impact. And that's really where we're at. And so we are coming up with several different models to have Council react to give us some direction to take back to our Human Services Advisory Board. The other thing that is going to happen, that in April, May, that the advisory board is going to, after presenting to Harold, present to City Council, right, to talk about what your focus will be, kind of where you want to go this next year. We also, through the work that John, Arlene, I think Lonnie was part of meetings. We also have some really great data from our GIS department. They have helped us map food deserts. I think Dave was part of some of those conversations as well. They've helped us map food deserts, pull together really good visual representations of kind of what we're facing in Longmont. So we have those overlays of maps that will provide some good data that they have said that they will help with either of the presentations, our human services funding revamp, or the presentation that you all do to Council. And then what we have is the opportunity in green, really, that will help us to inform kind of the models that we're going to present to Council. Our goal is food access and security, and so how can we leverage the funds that we have for 2026 to really go that mile deep is kind of what I'm looking at. Of course, it takes Council to policy direction, but I think laying out all that information and bringing together those connecting points. We know that housing also goes through those 4 areas, but that's a very complex issue. We're not going to be able to fix the housing crisis that we have with the 3% of the general funds that we wouldn't see much movement on that within a year. Perhaps if we focus on food security, we might be able to really move that marker. And that's really a discussion for Council to have. The other green boxes along the bottom are what Children, Youth, and Families is doing. They're looking at having a food service that will provide those after-school meals. There's all kinds of licensing, health department considerations that they have to have. And so they are looking at working with the Colorado Department of Health and Public Health and Environment, consulting with them to see what that looks like. But what that can also do is open the door to them providing some meals to seniors during the expanded hours that you're open here. We're looking at grants that would fund, both those senior and school-age children. And then in the housing and community wellness area, what's the tie-in, and how can we get food in the hands of people who live at the suites. is where we're starting with that. We know that the issue is much larger in other permanent supportive housing places, but we can start with the suites because we have our clinicians there. So is that what you were looking at?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Also, Ann was very helpful in getting us connected to the Hour
And
Center.
that's right, I forgot him. How could I forget him? Exactly. Yeah, it's great to just have so much support and so much interest for this, so yeah.
Right.
Do you find Zinnia has the same problem as the suites, or are they different?
Zinnia at this point does not, because they have access to a food pantry there.
Okay.
And so there's some equity issues that we're looking at, because Zinnia has that food pantry there, but people at the suites can't access that. And so then we know that there's the transportation piece of things and everything that you all have talked about as far as access to a debit card or a credit card to make that happen. Sometimes people have anxiety issues that prevent them from utilizing public transportation. And so what is the opportunity that our clinicians at the suites have to create a small pantry there, and then create those links to the Hour Center and to our different food pantries. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when I was listening last night to the council, it seems to me that when they have their February 28th meeting, that one of the items on there is going to be what's going on with the seniors.
Exactly.
That wasn't exactly what it was.
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So they're getting some basic information. Then when we come in and go with more, at least it won't hit them cold.
Right.
So are you going to be presenting that, or is that just what they're going to talk about?
I don't have the agenda yet, but it's on my calendar, and so I'm expected to be there. That's why I can't be at coffee with leadership here on the 28th. And so, my guess is that they will be asking that, and oftentimes it is about laying that information out so that, Harold can see it. I've already talked to him a little bit about this and said, this is what we're seeing in all areas. This is what we're thinking. These are the links that we have. Advisory board is working on it. Children, Youth, and Family is working on it. And that's really kind of what I see my job is pulling in those links.
Mm-hmm.
So, they'll be aware of that.
We're going to go a few minutes over. So my question, one question is to you. Do you think that this asking for that to be considered a core service is a good place for us to ask the city council?
If it were me on this board, what I would do is leverage the equity, safety, and sustainability piece of things, because core services is really, by definition, about water, power, sewer, parks, broadband, the things that we don't see but are essential. But equity, safety, and sustainability are still part of that foundation. Okay. And I think food access and security is about equity, right? How are seniors looked at as equitable access? How are low-income families? How are people who have been previously unhoused and or have mental and behavioral health struggles? How is that impacting them? And I think you have all that data, and it's really tying that to this part of the foundation in my mind. That's what I would recommend.
I think that's a valid point. Okay, great.
Yeah. So we can move that arrow up easily enough.
Yes.
You did ask me about a recommendation. Okay. I know that for transportation, we're going to go with recommending the TMP, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's nothing I can think of that we've discussed in housing that is in the forefront that we really need right now that we can do from senior services. Mm-hmm. I know that, in the past we've done more people for resource specialists and we've gotten it, so it's not anything definite that I can think of. Is there anything you can think of you think that we can, just to make that kind of under housing, here's what we'd like? Because as we do transportation, it's going to be short, sweet, and just say we support the TMP. Is there anything under housing we can do?
Under housing,
'Cause I can't think of it. I mean,
no, I mean, yeah, I can't think of anything specific to housing that you could, that you haven't already talked about.
okay.
All right. Anything else? What I'll do is, I'll make the corrections that Christine just suggested and put in the slides that I left out.
I already put them in. I'll send it to you now.
Yes, okay. But I'll send you this presentation. I'd like you to comment if you want to add, delete, what makes sense and what have you. And then we'll have it ready for the March. So I'll have it out to you by the next couple of days. Get it back to me as soon as possible. Any corrections, adds, whatever. And then I'll send it back a final before we have the March 5th meeting. To get the last okay on everything.
And then when do we go?
March 5th, Harold will be here.
March 5th,
Right,
Harold.
but I mean, when do we do the presentation to council?
I think they're setting a date in April. Was there a date yet?
I didn't know if we'd set it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. That's up there to set the actual date for us to do
Double
this.
check, but I don't have a. I may have already done that. I can see.
And thank you all for your support to get us here. Again, we've been doing this since March of last year, and here we are, so.
Ready to go.
It's been a ride. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn? Lonnie, second? That's quick, thank you, and good night.